for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our agenda today is approval of minutes from January 23rd, regular meeting, impressive remarks, general manager's report, public comment, old business final review and approval of the 2013-14 budget, request from Al Wendling to have a permit. He had filed for the money for that to be rebated to him. CPI actions, appointments to committees, media questions, and adjournment. In addition to the agenda.
Last chance, Tom.
Well,
Okay, Peter, what would you like?
Yeah.
Where's the pool contract fall in?
I'll cover that in the GM report.
Okay, so that's a separate item. And secondly, the final review and motion to approve budget. Big assumption and approval of budget.
okay.
I have a motion here to approve that.
No, it's just a wording thing. Motion to approve. It's been changed.
Mr. President, we also have Mr. Moore in our midst. I believe he has a report for the board,
Yes, okay.
which should go somewhere in the report section, either before or after the general manager's report. And we have a motion that has been submitted by Mr. Stevens. Mr. Stevens, I believe that you would want that motion heard in old business before we talk about the budget.
Old business before we talk about the budget.
Yeah.
Also, I would like under old business to include a brief discussion of the status of the charter and where we need to go from there.
You know, that's fine. Yep. We'll do that after the budget if that's okay. Any other changes or adjustments? Okay. The minutes from January 23rd, any adjustment, changes, corrections to that?
I have a problem with, under new business motion, actions to be taken regarding association members who fail to pay charges in excess of $5,000. It says, after discussion, it was decided Mr. Thompson will research and develop the process. And that's true, but there's still the motion that was voted on 7-0 that basically gave them March 1. So I mean, the motion, I think outrides that part of the minutes is off.
Well, let's get the wording in there correctly.
If you want to make it short, you can just say, follow the procedures outlined in F4, articles of incorporation, or articles of reinstatement and PRs.
Now, that's a little too simplistic. Basically, your motion, as I remember it,
Here it is right here.
is it, well, but just add that to the minutes then.
Okay. And I got this off our website yesterday.
That's fine.
And it's exactly right.
Do you have that?
I'll put that in.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I have a motion to accept the minutes as they have been adjusted. Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, President's remarks. I just have one thing I want to bring to the attention of the folks. And as we all know, we've had a drainage issue facing us for quite a while. And we've had multiple different solutions over the years presented to the Ocean Pines Association at various levels of cost and estimate. I want to give out a thank you to our team, Bob Thompson, Eddie Wells, and the others within the Ocean Pines team who worked on the solution, and to Jim Bunting, especially from our county commission, who along with with Bob Shockley from the county, did a lot of research and investigation, got down in the ditch, with shovel in hand, and figured out how to solve this issue. The groundbreaking for that activity has begun. The cost, I believe, is under $40,000 to fix this compared to some of the other solutions that have been brought up over the years. And I felt it appropriate as board president to give recognition to those who came up with that very, very cost-effective solution with a lot, according to Jim Bunting. He's very, he's not exactly an overly proud guy. He gave all the credit to Bob Shockley for all the work that he did, so gave a lot of credit to Bob and to Jim both, along with Eddie and Bob as well. So thanks to all four of them and anyone else who was involved with that activity. Tremendous savings and a unique, and not to mention the fact that we teamed up, the county teamed up with some neighbors here to work through utilization of others' land and that kind of thing. But I just want to make sure that Jim and Bob got a little recognition from us for their work. So thank them very much when you see them. Okay. We'll move into general manager's report.
All right. I have already handed out the copies. They're in front of you. It's short today because I know there's a lot of other budget items. We'll start with the bottom line. This is the first one is the forecast number through the end of the year. Not much change from the quarterly forecast from the October meeting. So you see the numbers are holding where they are. We're trying to chip away in some areas, but this is not the time when we're driving the most revenue with the amenities that are non-operational right now. So next page gives you the monthly report. Again, similar path, just two, or actually three areas, the top three that are always under a lot of scrutiny. Aquatics. Aquatics showed a negative variance for the month. You're looking at monthly numbers now, of $6,900. Conversely, the golf operations showed positive variance for the month. Again, this is month-to-month budgeting of 16. I think where that positive came in primarily were some of the changes that were associated with the yacht club being closed, and folks are now migrating over for the weekends for the meals over at the country club. So I think that's adding a lot of value there. The last one is the yacht club. With our decision to close it down, that had a positive, if you look at the budget to the month, of approximately $7,000. So we're chipping away. It's trying to close that gap for the overall is not something that we're going to be able to do, and that's why we kept the forecast where it was in the last slide. And you guys obviously get the monthly reports. Okay, delinquent assessments. If you follow FO4, we're required to give a report. I'll give a formal written report out to the board between now and March 1st when it's due. But what I wanted to do is give an overview so everyone understands how they were. This is the month we usually do it. Give an overview of the process we use, and then give you a little update on what the committee found out when we did the when we had our meeting. Delinquent. I want to hand out a couple of things that you have in your hands when we're going over these.
You'll just make it hard to see the screen, but I'm over 60 and I can't read at this point.
Thank you. I was just about to ask for a Braille.
I definitely can't read this in the dark.
That's the whole purpose.
That's the whole purpose.
Thank you. The sheriff has that.
Help me challenge you this morning. Just hear me out. I put it on big print too so you can see it. Most of you have seen the majority of this, but this is the time of year when we go ahead and review it, so I made sure I make copies. All right. Let's go through the process real quick. Step one with our process, okay, is the assessments go out. Step 2 is from May 1st, the assessments are due. 3, as of July 1st, the assessments that have not been paid get mailed out the first letter. The second handout I handed you actually has the list of letters that go out. We send the second letter out as of August. September, notice of intent to file lien, and it's sent certified mail. Property owners have 30 days to respond before we exercise that option. October, any certified letters not picked up or signed, copies are made, physically posted on the property. November, liens are filed.
Let me make sure, I know what this process is. Copies made of what, posted on what? It's just a little more.
Of the intent for the lien, and then they're placed on the property owner's door.
Okay, so I want to make sure everybody understood what that meant. Okay.
Again, if I'm going fast, I'm just trying to save time. November, liens are filed with Worcester County. December, notice of lien is filed, sent to property owners. List also given to the attorney to send letters from their office as well. Legal proceedings are permitted to start. February, all outstanding balances are identified. Most egregious offenders are selected for foreclosure proceedings. Notice of intent of foreclosure letter sent from the attorney's office. 45-day letter, file complaint to foreclose. These are just the legal steps that get followed. Wait for the court order to say we can sell the property. Notification served to delinquent property owners. 15-day mediation period. Notice of sale posted once a week for 3 weeks. Property may be sold within that next 30-day window. Enhancements. This is something we started a little more proactively last year. It was something I reported on. I just wanted to run through that process. With Ruth Ann taking a more active role in the collections process, active phone calling, active mailings, follow-ups. This is the process we use. And when you if you start the first phone call, if contact is made, we try to agree to a plan, we confirm it with a letter. No contact, we validate the number, send certified letter if we still can't get it. If it's a bad number, they're the steps we use to try to find, find a good number to speak to the person. All right, some of the results. This is the page with the small print that I handed out, the single page.
Before you go to that point,
Yeah.
the package you just handed to us, the first 3 letters, A1, A2, and A3, are labeled. I would assume that they just go straight forward
They go
in
straight
numerical
forward.
order from there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the first page I handed you has some color coding. I tried to match the color up there to make it easy to identify. Payment plans. We have worked very, very hard for those who are in delinquency to engage with them in a way, because a lot of people, have struggled over the last few years. Is there a way we can make payment plans? And 2 years ago, we were at 121. Last year, we're at 250 people that were in the payment plan process. So we're very, very pleased. We think the efforts that Ruth Ann has made, the constant follow-up, for touch base, the list that she's calling on a regular basis, we're seeing the results. We've almost doubled folks that are on payment plans. And these aren't sporadic. These are the folks that have made regular payment plans. As opposed to, we do have some that will make a couple payments, stop for 3, start again, make a lump sum. These are the continual regular payment plans. Prepayment plans. This one is, when we set up the regular payment plan schedule, we also allowed folks that don't want to see a large bill come due at once to prepay their assessment, and it gets applied when they come due May 1st. Interestingly enough, we've had an increase in those as well. 133 in 11, 164 in 12. We currently have 169 people who are taking advantage of that. So, yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, on the payment plans, I assume there's an interest rate attached to that. Is there one on the prepayment plan?
No, because there's no, we're not paying them
Good, I
interest.
just wanted to check. Okay, thank you.
Should actually be the other way around.
What's that?
Should actually be the other way around. We should be paying the prepayment plans interest on the money that they're depositing.
you all can pass a motion to it, it may slow that down on us because it's going to create a lot more work.
Just out of fairness, I'm just following Ms. O'Hara's comment.
Foreclosures. This is where we are right now. Foreclosures occurred in 11/26. 12 was 15/5 at 2013. These are bank foreclosures on properties. We expect that to increase before the end of, obviously, this year. But all these numbers are as of February 1st, 2013. Bankruptcies. You see those numbers, 11 were 9, 12 were 5, 13 were 9. And these are just tracking of our list of those that are in arrears, what the status of the accounts are and what's occurring with those accounts.
Bob,
Okay.
before you back up for a second, just one clarification question for
Yes, sir.
everybody. In the payment plans and versus the prepayment plans, I'm assuming that in the payment plans, those people are not considered eligible to vote or participate in other non-paid functions of Ocean Pines.
You're correct.
But the prepayment plans, obviously, if they're paid in full by the due date, they are paid in full.
Correct. The prepayment plans are just
Yeah,
folks that have...
got it. I'm just making sure that I understand it. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'd like to clarify one thing too. When it says 213, you're talking fiscal year 213, not calendar year 213.
Correct.
Bob, of this 250 in 2012 under payment plans, are they included in the box here on the left, the 947 delinquent letters and all that? Is that 250 embedded in this, or is that above and beyond that number?
I don't know the 9 number you're referring to. Which...
Well, you've got a delinquent letter of 947, August letter 730.
They're on a payment plan, they just don't get them.
They're under the payment plan. Are they in this box?
Oh, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, we still follow the process. We still have the legal process we need to go through. The difference is when we get to the point of where we exercise the foreclosure option, up to this point, we have not because they're making regular payments to us. So we've allowed that to continue without taking that next further step. But we do follow lien against the property. It's recorded and it's there. So we have all of our legal side of it covered. But if you're making the payments, we're trying real hard to work with you, to work with whoever's delinquent.
So just to be clear, setting up a payment plan might hold off foreclosure as the last step of what we're doing if somebody's trying hard to catch up and make their bill payment. But if they're not, then you go through the whole process. You just keep going.
Correct. Okay, one thing I wanted to bring to the attention of the board, and the reason I'm doing this is not to tell you you were right or wrong in your motion last month, okay? But I just want to bring some additional information to you. It was discussed at length when we followed FO4, we have our committee meeting and we sit and we talk about this. I just need the board to make sure they understand what we're seeing right now with the decision. The second part of the motion says, in excess of $5,000, initiate legal action against those members for such unpaid charges, interest, costs, reasonable attorney's fees, and any court of competent jurisdiction for a debt owed by the delinquent member or members of the association. Okay, basically that step, as I understand it, is going to small claims court. I have a no, I have a 2 shaking their
That's what it
head.
says.
What is the break? Is it five? I thought anything over 5,000 might not be small claims court.
Well, I'm going to break that. I will explain this to everybody, and Mr. Moore can back me up on these. Our meeting included, just so you know, following FO4, we had a meeting which was inclusive of myself, our controller, our delinquent assessment supervisor, Ruth Ann, also included Chris Woodley from Joe Moore's office, included Terry Moore, our treasurer, assistant treasurer Pete Gomsat, And Dennis Hudson, Chair, thank you, Chair of the Finance Committee. So we reviewed all these in detail to include what the impact of this motion would be financially to the association. And let me go through the numbers. And Mr. Stevens, you had said, no, it didn't mean small claims court.
It
So,
didn't say, it didn't say small claims court.
Okay.
Therefore, it said legal action.
Okay.
And that's not the only alternative.
okay, here, again, the only alternative, other than what we're doing legally, which we do file a lien, the only other one that's been brought to my attention by several board members has been small claims court. And it was highly encouraged to seek that action. So what I thought I'd do is get the process laid out, ask our attorney to help us with it so we fully understood it, and brief the board on it. So if that motion means something else, I need specifics spelled out for me so I don't take the wrong action. Small claims
Yes, it doesn't say small claims court. It says,
Any court.
court of property,
initiate legal action against those members for such unpaid charges.
which we do now. We've already done that. So
Yeah,
If
by
I-
filing the lien.
That's true. You do now. I mean, it's a matter of.
Well, let's clear,
Yeah.
how many different options are there? There is filing a lien against someone leading up to foreclosure, and there's small claims court. What is the other option that's on the table? What's the other option?
Sue them.
Sue them.
Sue them, which is what our documents tell us to do. Publish their names and sue them.
Can you,
Well, it could be small claims court,
Yeah,
it could
the
be circuit
issue,
court.
is in small claims court, you don't have to have Woodley or I enter our appearance, pay our attorney's fees and all that. Any representative that you authorize to represent the corporation could go in small claims court and file the document. That is limited by the jurisdiction of a small claim. So and as I read the delinquent assessment thing, I think what Marty's point is, this says in any court of competent jurisdiction. So if I read this and take it literally, what it means is if you can get in small claims court, then you let Art and Ruth Ann handle it. If you can't, then you direct us in addition to or in lieu of the foreclosure to sue them and get a judgment and try the process there. A corporation is limited in its representation without a lawyer. An individual can sue for $1 million themselves. A corporation can't.
All right, if I could finish the next two steps and might clarify, and then we can have,
Just one quick question.
okay, go ahead.
I don't mean to bother
No,
you.
you're the board member, go ahead.
Sorry, that's what I thought. I have a question for Joe. If somebody owes us $10,000, and we look at it, we think we might have a good chance to sue, but we want to do it in small claims court, is it possible to sue them for $4,999?
It is.
And then go after the balance later?
It is.
Okay.
Well,
So you can eat the elephant one bite at a time.
wait. You cannot have multiple, a court is not going to let you have multiple claims for the same $10,000 debt, just to, in other words, if I understand your question, can you sue them twice for $49.99?
Once for $49.99.
Yeah.
Settle that case.
Yeah.
They still owe us $4,500. So
Yeah.
again,
Yes, and if you try and get in small claims court the second time, it is probable that a court is going to say, since that claim was there and you did not utilize your legal right, you're precluded from doing so. And let me say, Marty, in many instances, if we have somebody who thinks they've been damaged for $6,000, we say, it's going to save you money if you collect $49.99 and just let the $1,000 go. But you cannot, maybe I'll try and answer it right. You can't reserve that which you should have done and later sue it on the same claim, because a court is going to say, if it becomes aware of it, that you waived that claim when you determined the jurisdiction you originally did, because it's the same debt. It's not a new debt. It's not a new
Thank you.
cause of action.
Bob?
Yeah, the reason small claims court, I'm going into detail, is I've had several of the board members clearly state to me small claims court should be our option very strongly. So I wanted to make sure I thoroughly understood it and was able to report it. Okay, here's the process. File paperwork at small claims court. Papers then need to be served to the member or resident that we're suing. Court, if not contested, will rule. If they rule against the resident has 30 days to appeal it. However, before that ruling, the resident has the opportunity to contest the case, and then it would move on to trial. If the ruling is upheld and not contested, so we go to small claims court, we get the court to rule in our favor. There's no appeal that occurs. The next thing that will happen is we then need to attempt to garnish wages or funds from, we would file a lien. Again, we're already in lien position because we've done that in our other process. So the next option that it gives us the ability to do is garnish wages and or bank funds, those type of things to collect. However, at that point, and this is where Chris Woodley was very helpful, just because you win that ruling, now someone actually has to find where the employee, where the person is employed, where their financials may be, and then also has to serve papers on either the bank, the employer, or whomever to attach those wages or garnish those wages. So there are additional steps, and there's cost associated with those steps. Okay, just some basic costs. File the paperwork and serve the papers. Estimated cost is between $128 and $138, depending on above or below the $5,000 limit. The next thing, in any instance where it's contested and it has to go to trial, the estimated costs are about $1,000. If they go to trial, you have to engage with your attorney. It no longer filing for these. We could send an employee to the county from where it initiated, where they live, and file those claims. So filing's not an
Let me
issue.
make sure I'm clear here. We don't file in Worcester County. We have to file where the member lives.
Correct.
So if somebody lives in Western Maryland,
We'd have to file
Have
in
to
the
go
county
there.
of their residence. Yes.
okay.
Okay. Yes.
May I
Sure.
correct the technicality? You can sue them here, but they have a right to be sued in the county where they reside or do business.
Oh, okay.
I have known lawyers who will remain nameless, perhaps, who do that regularly, hoping that the person won't file for a change of venue, and they've got a hometown court to deal with. But they have a right to, and it's an absolute right to be sued in the county of their residence. The court won't quarrel with that if they say, I'm in the wrong county.
Okay, so we can file here, but it may get moved. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any case contested. The other thing that Mr. Woodley brought out, anything above $5,000 does require an attorney and has a higher probability just by the sheer number of the $5,000 of being contested. So, with that being said, at the motion for $5,000 above, we have 63 accounts that are at the $5,000 or above. At the minimum cost of $1,000, that's a potential of a $63,000 expense to the association. Again, those costs may vary. We try to go on the low end and be conservative with the estimate. But to a T, everyone through our discussions, including Mr. Woodley, all felt that that was a very reasonable number to apply to those. So the question comes in, applying those costs for those of $5,000 above, unless there's other direction, small claims court was my understanding of the next step. If that wasn't the case, I just need to know that so I don't make a $63,000 mistake. Our group made some recommendations following this, going through this and trying to figure out what might be another strategy to attack this, see if we can continue to make improvements in our collection. Our recommendation is members, and you'll get this in writing before the March 1st, just so you know. I'll have a full written report, but I was trying to give a highlight for you today at our meetings. So members who currently have payment plans, we think should be, and they're complying with those plans, that we should exempt them at least for a period of time as long as they stay current with what they've agreed to pay us on through the payment plan process. Initiating legal action should be restricted to those members specifically selected. Our goal was to have Ruth Ann go through in detail. She has knowledge of all the accounts. Sit down, highlight those accounts, figure out which ones, based on the information that we have in the file, information of what we've been working on with them, contacts she's had with them, and updated information that we've been getting from Mr. Woodley when it comes to how much the property value appears to be in the land records and what it appears to be as a mortgage on that property. See how much, how much room there is there before we initiate the full process. And then the other is initially exempting those members residing outside of Worcester County. And the reason for that, to Mr. Moore's point and Mr. Woodley's point, they have a right to do it in their county of records, or where they live, basically. We thought if we're going to initiate this, let's start it with a smaller group and see how it works out. We'll take a sample and work through that process, limits our cost, limits our risk, and we can see how the process works. So that was our recommendation to bring to you guys today.
Let me make sure that I may be going over the ground with just Brown, but I want to make sure that we're all understanding the deal. We passed a motion that said if you owe us over $5,000, you were directed to go after that member in a court of law. It didn't specifically say small claims court, it said sue them, which is what it said to go after. We now understand that cost to do that. I'm a little fuzzy on the small claims court limit. Did I understand it correctly that if it's over $5,000, we have to have a lawyer?
That's correct.
Therefore, we basically excluded the lawyer savings with the $5,000 limit that we put in.
Right. In other words, anything over that, we have to file your documentation for you. And we have an appearance in court. and the court will not let Bob Thompson come in and say, I'm representing Ocean Pines and I want to try this case.
So per our motion, when we said $5,000, we basically excluded the saving by not knowing we were doing that, obviously. So
Yeah,
that limit-
ironically, that's the break point.
It's just ironic, okay. So let's say that limit was $4,999. I mean, just $1 difference, but that would allow us to do some of the paperwork ourselves up front, right? Okay. However, if they contested it, what is the assessment of, and this is probably going to be a real wild guess here, but of these folks we're now going after, how many did you, 63, right?
5,000.
There's 63 of these folks. What estimate of those 63 do you think would challenge us if we went to small claims court for $4,999? What was your assumption? All 63 would challenge it?
No, I'm confused.
Well, how many are going to challenge it?
No, I'm confused about the number.
Okay.
63
Yes,
are over 5,000.
right.
We already need the attorney for that. The number that's under 5,000, we don't need the attorney unless they contest
I
it.
understand that, but we just had a discussion between Marty and Joe that we are not required to sue somebody for every dollar they owe us.
Let's say, for example, that 10 of the 63 owe you $6,000. That's a determination on your part. You can file suit for $49,999, or some rounder number close to that, and then waive the rest, because what you're doing is you're saving attorney's fees. So, again, that almost, and I thought that you all voted, and I don't know that. I don't attend a lot of your meetings, but I thought you all regularly voted on those cases which we are instructed to file, by case by case.
Used to.
So that would be the appropriate time, it seems to me, to make that judgment. saying, look, we got $6,000 owed by Joe Blow. Let's sue him for $49.99 wage grabs, or not.
And if I may be correct if I'm wrong, part of those 63 are under a payment plan. Is that correct?
Part of the 63 are under payment plan, correct?
Okay.
How many are there?
I don't have that in front of me. I can get it for you.
I mean,
I would be,
okay.
Is it unlikely that I would have thought a smaller percentage of the ones that are over $5,000 are trying to get on a payment plan? Maybe they're doing it to avoid something like that. I mean, I think the ones that are payment plan, the ones that are going to the time. I'd like to know what that number is. My guess would have been that it would have been a fairly small number, and that the larger number of people on payment plan deal a lot less than that.
So the preponderance of the 63 is still going to be left on the list. Marty? Go ahead.
If by publishing names and suing them, 3 of them come over to the payment plan program, then this has been a success. Joe, when we talk about these costs to sue a delinquent member, those costs become the delinquent member's cost when we finally prevail. If we prevail.
Can be, Marty.
I read it as all costs associated with collection.
Yes, you have a contractual circumstance with your delinquent owners that you can ask for attorney's fees. That is not what some people call slam dunk. That is up to the court. They can reject it. We have had in CPI enforcement, we are generally denied any requests for attorney's fees. The judge just doesn't pile on, but that's the judge's determination. But it's possible that we could do it. But if you sue for attorney's fees, then you have to add that on to your debt, because that puts it over the $5,000. What you're trying to collect is what the judge determines jurisdiction on that to be.
You currently are charging people service fees and interest. I mean, the cost of God help me, what's the young lady's name? Ruth Ann going down to file these suits can be added to the cost of the debt.
That you can, but you cannot add attorney's fees as costs of the case. They're two different things.
I got you. You've answered my question.
I do want to say one thing, and I don't want to belabor the points. When you talk about your delinquent assessment, small claims court estimated costs, and it says $1,000 for any case contested, that is a judgment call as well. Ruth Ann can try her case if she wants to, or Art can, without having us there, even if it's contested. If you have ever been in small claims court, dozens of landlords try their own cases. And the issue is whether you want to do that. Again, that's your business judgment. If you want them to try a case that is contested, that's fine. And again, people regularly contest a case and defend themselves without hiring a lawyer, because all they have to do is file a notice of intention to defend and be able to give a one-line reason. I don't know the one. And the judge will let, in small claims court, the judge will let non-lawyers prosecute and defend cases.
May I ask a question? What you're doing now is giving us a preliminary, and you're going to give us a more detailed report on this.
correct.
Okay, for example, with these 63, Ruth Ann's talking to some of these people, perhaps their home is for sale, the foreclosure, I mean, all this stuff she will be aware of, because some cases you're just not going to collect the money unless the home is sold or something happens to it.
Correct.
So that kind of information will be coming to us.
No, we're not going to give you a breakdown on, or wasn't the intent, we never have a
Okay.
breakdown on each individual property and that level of detail in a written report. We've never done that.
Oh, okay. Then
What the
what is your
report-
next report going to
The
include?
report will include this information, what we found in greater detail, percentage-wise. It'll take everything I'm sharing with you today and give you
Okay.
more detail. It will not break down individual case by case.
Okay, I don't need, okay.
Now, again, or it never has, so you all can certainly direct that.
But it looks to me like you were asking for individual case-by-case exemptions, perhaps. Members that currently have a payment plan should be exempt, perhaps.
My, well, no, my biggest concern is, when I look at the motion that was passed, and I already have a board member saying, no, we didn't mean small claims court. I just need clarity. Whatever you all want to do, let's do, but I just want to follow the process. I checked with our attorney to make sure of what the cost would be to go to that next level, and I just thought I'd bring it to you all to make you aware of it. That's all. Whatever you direct me to do, we'll do.
Yeah, I'm going to remind Sharon too that once Bob would give specifics of who owes what to this board, it becomes public record and there could be a confidentiality problem. Second, if we're looking at like 1% of the total people.
Right. Outstanding. No, the total number, not just 5,000 and above, but
Yeah.
in total, right around 3%.
Well, I'm just talking about the fund, but it's not even that, I don't even quite 3%.
It's 920,000.
It's really not bad for a homeowners association when you look at it that way. So I just continue to do what you're doing. You know, it's
Well, the motion redirect.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
number out, one number.
We're being brought information here that when we passed the motion, I voted for it, that we should do this.
Dan said it's
Bob, I think you've done a good, quick job of summarizing your position and asking for clarification. What you haven't done is told me the real scope of this problem. You've told me that there's 63 people out there who are over $5,000. You've also told me on another piece of paper that you didn't talk about in your briefing that there's $951,018.68 or whatever it is that's outstanding at this point in time. I need to know what this 63 people represent of that $900,000. What's the total? I mean, if they all only owed $5,000, it's $315,000 that we're going after. Obviously, the number's bigger than that.
Yes.
So when you do your report, if you'd be kind enough to include that, I would appreciate it.
So the 5,000 above, what number, what the total amount that represents?
Exactly. What's the scope in dollars of the problem that we're really looking at here? And how important is it really?
350,000 controllers.
Well, 350. So there aren't too many people that owe much more than $5,000. I mean, you say 63, but that's $315,000 at $5,000 each. So 355 is only another $40,000 in there, which could get
We
eaten
have
up.
some at 7 or 8, 9,000.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to get to is the point that Joe has been trying to make, and that we can eat that up in legal fees and processing without seeing any of it anyway.
Well, that was one of the discussions at the committee meeting, was that we have Ruth Ann, who is intimately involved in every one of these accounts. She's talked to these people, the people she, I'd say probably 95% of these people she's spoken to. She knows the history, she follows these accounts. I made the example that you could probably ask her to name you somebody that was in this particular number, and she could. We're lucky in that respect because we have somebody who knows that. So we have kind of given her the task to help Bob with those numbers. How much of the over 5,000, how much do you think is collectible? Tell us, is there there's actually somebody who's left the country. Well, what do you think the chances of collecting that are? So
Sure.
she knows those details, and that's what her and Bob are going to work on.
I got you. I brought this issue up, I don't know how long ago, but well over a year, maybe a year and a half or something like that, okay? And I brought it up, and this is the issue of small claims court. I brought it up because it was brought to my attention by a member who was an attorney, she was a member of the committee. And I asked her a lot of questions about it, including going to websites to find out what kind of product. One of the first questions I asked, and it's a question that came up apparently as a surprise to Bobby yesterday you pick out who you want to take to court, and like, take person A and not take person B, and can we do that? And, her answer was absolutely. And not surprisingly, Chris Woodley's answer was the other night. Absolutely. So we could do one.
Dan,
We could do one. Oops.
Then plug it.
We could do one out of all of them, or we could just, pick one. We don't, and perfect justification. Anyway, that's not, the point is, it is to the point of going back to the motion. I looked at the motion, and I looked at the wording, legal action, didn't say small thing, it said legal action. And Bob pointed out correctly, we're already taking legal action, particularly for the ones above $5,000, actually for a lot more than that. We're filing liens, and that's a legal action. So what did the motion mean? Well, I think the intent of the motion was to look at a broader spectrum of legal action and to pick and choose the cases where you're going to apply those. Pick and choose. Now, how many, you have all these counter arguments about why we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't do it because of this and that. Well, we shouldn't do it because people live in other places and it's hard to go over there and explore more. Well, we have an opinion from the attorney here that says, well, we can just file it here. And notice if they don't insist that it come over there, we got it. The other thing is that I asked the question over there, and a lot of trouble, a lot of hassle over it, because I asked her the simple question, how many of the people that owe us money now, do you know the number that live here in Ocean Ponds? And the number was 111. 111, I said, that's a big enough number to work, start looking at and doing something with it. It was a reasonable number. Now, there's other things that I can't prove, but on the other hand, I hear the counter arguments and know that they can't be proved with any certainty. Is what is the potential impact, of course, if people come back? So if somebody basically contests the claim, well, one of the things that was pointed out to me was that in this particular case, it's pretty darn hard to contest owing the association's money, given all of the documents and given all the processes that we go through to tell the person that they owe us the money. I mean, there may be some basis for a contest, but I have to guess that number is pretty small.
Let me turn to Marty for a second. Marty, this was your motion, and as I remember the motion, it had two major parts to it. One was listing the names of people, publicizing the names of the people who owed more than $5,000, and taking legal action. Now, the definition of legal action for a lot of people was the assumption when that meant smallest claims court, the least costly approach to going after these folks. What I'm not I'm going to let you answer what you meant in this motion. It is the intent of that motion to not allow an assessment of anybody who's over 5? You have to go over that after them, regardless of whether we think we can get the money or not, or is it, as I read it, it said if you're over 5, we're coming after you in English language. That's what it said. So what was the intent, besides listing the names, what was the intent on the legal side of that motion? What did you think we were trying to do?
It does say reasonable cost.
What I thought we were doing was what we're charged to do
Okay.
in our charter, third section, number 7. Levy an annual charge upon the members of the association to publish the names of members who shall fail to pay charges with the association,
All right, that one's pretty clear.
to sue to collect any of such charges as are not paid, semicolon, to impose a lien against any real estate in the subdivision that's owned by the delinquent member of the association for the charge as is not paid when due, semicolon, and to foreclose any such lien.
Okay, so that language, as you read it, does not leave any
there's always wiggle room. This document, and we're charged to make sensible business calls.
Oh, okay.
If a guy
Okay.
has a house and he owes $1 million on it, and it's worth $500,000, why would you foreclose? That's a blocked alley. But if a guy has moved out of Ocean Pines after a foreclosure, owes us $8,000, he's living in Oyster Harbor and working for the county, suing.
Well, and I trust everybody knows that every delinquent member gets a lien filed against them.
That's a fact.
I mean, you know, what that is
Legal
it is
action.
public notice that their property is encumbered with a lien, just as though it were a mortgage. So they can't sell or refinance or anything like that until they either clear the lien or have a lender that doesn't care. And that's very selfish.
So let's just be clear here. The impact of the motion that was passed in the last meeting does two things. It requires the publishing in some format of the names of folks who owe us over $5,000. Go ahead.
Again, sound business sense. If that person is paying us an amount of money every week, month,
Right.
that's reducing their debt, making an honest effort,
And we don't have to do it.
we don't have to do that.
Okay. That makes sense?
Right.
Everybody? Okay. So,
And that's actually what the committee came out at the end of the meeting was, to do exactly what you said, to make sure we look at those accounts. If somebody left the country and there's no trail, why would you spend, I mean, now I'm just using that as an example, but
That's
your
one.
$1 million house, same thing.
okay, so we don't belabor this do we need, in the eyes of the members of the board, do we need to change the motion at all that was passed, or are we going to allow the implementation of the actions that appear to be going on to stand, and we're okay with it? But we haven't listed the names yet.
So you-
No, because it's not.
It's not due till March 1st, and that's the reality is that March 1st was the kick-in date of this whole thing. So do we need to change anything at all? Is there anyone who thinks we need to change the motion to clarify, or are we okay with the operational implementation of what's going on?
I would suggest, Mr. President, with Marty's qualifier, that good business sense and judgment be used when applying this his own, out of his own words and his own mouth, looking at his own document. We're fine with what we have. General manager and the committee exercised good judgment.
Anybody disagree with that?
I don't disagree, but I would like the floor back if you don't mind.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think I got really just one more point. The real issue is when, since the first time I brought this up, and since it's been discussed several times, I think I'm correct in saying that we have not taken one case this won't come to another one. That's the last thing. In general, the informal advice I was given is that if you, in fact, now we have placed plenty of room. Now, if you, in fact, just the action of taking somebody to court, will induce them to settle up a little bit. That may or may not be true, I don't know. But it's from somebody who's experienced. So I'll take your word for it. The other point that came out was, it's better to do it early. I mean, in my mind, the $5,000 and above cases are not what you're really addressing by looking at small claims court. Aside from the $4,999. You're better off taking the duress of action early, when it's least expensive to you, and it's most likely that the person is going to be able to pay the money. Now, it's a judgment call, but again, the rule that you don't have to do it equally to everybody. You can use somebody like Ruth Ann's expertise to figure out which cases, but she's got to get, we have to get into the process of doing it. All I'm trying to get started, and that's why I voted for Marty's motion. If we can roll that ball and get it started, it will cost us a little, and we can look at the results after a period. I think Bob even said, we'll take sample cases, and want to do. But don't look at just the ones that owe us the most money. Look at the ones that owe us any money and get into the mind frame that, look, if people owe us money, we're going to sue them.
Just one, this isn't about it, you know. Sometimes we skip all over the place talking about, well, 355 people, 250 people are paying us money, blah, blah, blah. We filed liens last November, this is staggering, on $920,000 of unpaid assessments. Does anybody have a calculator? I think that means 366 people owe each of us $150. You know, if you're going to take $100 of my money, ask first.
Okay. Well, we're back to you.
All right, just a quick update on some current projects. Drainage project on Section 3, and Tom had already started talking about it a little bit. Very, very excited about it. Jimmy Bunning did a fantastic job. His background helped us a whole lot with his surveying background. And Mr. Meltzer over at River Run agreed to the terms to do it. So everyone's working together to make this work. Contract was ordered to Bunning and Murray. They're already working on it. The plan is to have it completed by the end of this month. Everything. Now, when I say everything, basically what it is, when the pipes cross Beecham Road, instead of the way they turn now, it's going to turn short, easier turns, so the flow doesn't get the deadhead spot that it had been, which then stops it and backs it up in our property. And the piping from there to the pond that they have is being increased in size. And doing all the flows with Bobby Schopper's office, Jimmy Bunning, everyone looking at it, that increased flow should improve the drainage across Beecham Road and out, so Section 3 should see some relief there. The county stepped up and covered all the costs associated with it, so we very much appreciate that, and it's just real excited to finally have a potential solution. Now, does it solve everything? No, but I think this is should make a very, very good dent on getting the water flowing away from the community. Golf drainage project, contract's been executed. Drainage work on Hingham Lane will begin in the next 2 weeks. The work up to Hingham Lane has already been going on with the Greens project and 11 and 12. The piping, the Hingham Lane part of it, because of the additional pipe, we need to execute the contract for them to order those larger pipes, which has occurred. Yacht Club, very, very excited. Yacht Club project is finally, the contract's finally been executed. Utility work, they've already been working with the utility folks, being Chop Tank and Chesapeake. We have a temporary tank out there now from Chesapeake. Chop Tank is 3 pedestals instead of the one we had in, so all the pre-work's been going. So in the next couple weeks, between the demo permit, and that'll come on the pool side, the demo permit will be start the whole 9 yards, so we'll start to see some work. So in the next week or two, we'll have a groundbreaking over there, and I'll certainly circulate that.
Great.
That's it. That's it for me.
Thank you very much.
The next thing on your slide I saw was the pool contractor.
Oh, good. Thanks for the So
All right, Bob, people help me from time to time.
Wow, so happy to be finished. I'm thinking I'm done. We at Wednesday's meeting, we went through the RFP, the information on the pool contractor. Did we make copies? Yeah, but there's a whole set of them. They don't have it. No, we copied them this morning. Copy of, hang on a second. Tom, thanks for pointing it out. I apologize for slowing me down here. All right, we copied too much paper at this point. Basically, you all had a copy. I emailed it to you. Yes, thank you. All right, send it back. You know I was losing my mind on it.
Well, you emailed it.
Yes, yes. So you guys had it. We tried to make an additional copy. this morning, and I'm sure we did. You may not have it in your hand from this morning, but the intent was giving you guys 3 or 4 days to review it, and then moving forward with it today. We're going to execute the contract. We'll use the scope of work provided by the contractor. We'll do the change order, and that's how we'll impact the contract. And if everyone agrees, then we'll go ahead and do the assignment of that contract to Harkins.
Okay, we can't, in other words, we need to have another issue that has been forwarded to the board members. We had one of the contractors who had applied for the work euphemistically walk into Joe Moore's office or saw Joe at an exercise shop or something, saying that he wanted to meet with Joe and talk about whether he's been picked to do work at Ocean Pines or not, and in essence, the treatment he got in the RFP response and assessment. Joe met with Bob and myself, presented from his notes, but has forwarded to the board a write-up of that situation. And Joe, I will turn the floor over to you to talk about what the gentleman said and what went on.
Well, I think the board needs to instruct me accordingly. If I were running the meeting, I would suggest it be in closed session, but that's the board's judgment. I did not intend, the memorandum that I wrote was intended for board members, and as you can see, I urged discussion among the board members, but it's your collective judgment as to whether or not you want me to talk about it now or later.
Do we have a copy of it?
But
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
We're combining 2 issues here. and
Yeah, it sounds that way to me.
My question was on the full site, and Tom, I understand your transition, but I don't have those materials. They were emailed out confidentially from you last night to the board members, so I'm not prepared to speak on those at all.
Well, I mean, if the board is prepared to move forward on this contract discussion, we can do it. I just wanted to, that there was this issue out there that has not been, discussed. We had a supplier, in using my words, file a complaint about the process and how he was treated. Now, if the board's comfortable that the process was still valid and everything's okay, we'll move forward with the contract discussion.
It's going to have any effect on this contract?
Or as I know.
Because I haven't seen it, so it's kind of hard to address
Haven't seen what?
it. Whatever you're talking about, I've seen this, I just passed my copy down
When
there.
did it note?
That's not,
You did not?
that's all.
After 5 o'clock, I did not see it.
Well,
Was it right after 5?
Yeah, but Tom, this isn't mine.
Yeah, this is mine. I got the report from Joe late afternoon and forwarded it to the board members. And-
Well, Mr. President, I'm not running a meeting, but if there are board members that have not gotten my memorandum, it's not appropriate for me to discuss it at this point. I respectfully, I don't think I should do that.
And if it's a legal complaint, shouldn't it be in closed session?
Yes.
And I can say that I did see the memo, and I do not agree that it's something that will have to be taken care of. We have a complaint, we have a complaint, and it gets dealt with. If it's a legal complaint or whatever, then it gets dealt with. But it's not something that we can wait to sign a contract on. If we feel that the contract needs to be signed, it should be signed.
Folks, I ran these things for a major corporation for a long time, and when a vendor raised an issue, those who were making the decision had to decide whether to move on or not. And if we're deciding to move on because we're very comfortable with what the process was, then, which we went through the other night, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, the other thing is, we have not received a formal complaint. I don't think Joe has anything in writing, at least I didn't read that in his memorandum. It was just a conversation between him and one vendor, if you can get the job, so. move on.
But how did we haven't even given him.
Let's move back to the contract for discussion. Keep moving.
Dave, can I have my copy back?
I lost it.
We will pick up the issue from the vendor's problem at a later time, once everyone has had a chance to receive it. So,
Back to my court?
back to your report. Back to
Okay,
you
okay.
for a little while.
My court just says, I just handed out what, it was the additional, what was emailed. However, at our meeting on Wednesday, I was asked if I supply these in one document, make the copies in lieu of the email, so everybody had it in their hands, which I've done. The only addition that I can think of that would be in here, which I did include, that would not have been in the original one, because we had not indicated the contractor when I initially sent those out. I did include the scope in this copy packet of the contractor selected, the scope that they included. Because as of Wednesday, we said this would be our contractor. Everyone agreed, so I included the scope in addition to the other materials that had been provided to you. So the only update in this should be the materials from this contractor on the scope of work.
It wasn't included in the initial package.
I don't think the scope, you have a copy of it. I mean, I emailed a whole
Actually, I
lot to you.
didn't bring that.
Okay, I emailed a lot to you. Someone said they didn't have it, so I just made copies.
Scope of work that was in the RFP was in the package. We got some.
Yeah,
This is the
okay.
same guy.
No,
Yes.
we also got this one.
That's it.
I was told you didn't have it, so I copied it all
We
this
got it.
morning. So,
All right, so what action do we need to take at this point to pick the vendor to do the work?
I need the board's approval to enter into a contract with Parish Pools and to accept the contract for the demo, assign the contract to Parkins, who's handling the demo work. I just need the board to approve that, and then I can execute
Did we
the...
not make a motion last meeting to accept Parish Pool bid?
Yes.
So that was voted on.
That was voted on.
Okay, so
That's
that,
fine.
what you're just needing now is a vote to have Harkins be the GC over this.
Well, allow me to assign the work from us to Harkins, Parish Pools, basically we're assigning it, and also approve the way we're doing it with the change order that I supplied to you Wednesday evening.
With the done and bright finish and the LED lights and all that stuff.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct, okay. I thought we already voted on that, okay.
No, we already approved that. Right.
You're asking us to approve a change order to the Parkins contract.
That's correct.
Change order one.
Yes.
That's
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay, now I'm on the same page you are.
That's how we'll execute to move forward.
Okay.
I provided the information Wednesday evening. I'm just asking you to,
That-
you've had time to
that is
digest
on.
it.
We did vote on the
Yeah,
change
right.
order one, okay.
That's correct.
Do I have a motion?
I motion that we approve change order one submitted by our general manager.
Second.
Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 6-1.
Now that's all I have.
Okay, now you're done. Okay.
So when can I go swimming in the new yacht club?
That's right.
By Memorial Day, according to.
I wanted it to be Memorial Day, but that is 2 weeks to kill me.
You thought you were going to get away with that question.
All right, public comment is next. Public comment. Go to the microphone, sir, if you would, so people can, that are watching on the net and TV can hear you. That's right behind you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you Bring him the mic.
No, get the mic.
Bring him the mic.
Bring the mic to you.
Bring the mic to him. I didn't realize that was the situation.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Didn't realize the walking opportunity.
Maybe a trivial comment.
I doubt it.
We accept all comments. There you go, sir.
Name and address for
Mr. Unger.
Name and address, sir.
Oh, I'm Carol Andrews at 11427 Macklin Creek Road, Unit 2.
Very good.
Berlin, Maryland.
Okay.
21811.
Get the zip code down. 410.
410. We're moving the yacht club. And in this process, I have a suggestion. When I first came to Ocean Pines in 2005, people told me, why don't you go to the yacht club on Thursday night? They have a hamburger night. Well, I was a member and Commodore of 2 yacht clubs. And I said to myself, I'm not going to a yacht club and have to pay initiation fees and yearly dues just to go have a hamburger. And about 2 months later, it finally dawned on me, it wasn't a yacht club. It was a restaurant. So my suggestion is, when you move to the new location, you rename it, because a lot of people don't come to the yacht club because they don't want to be a member of the yacht club. Pay $1,000 a year membership. And I suggested, Mr. Unger we were in the yacht club, that we have a contest to rename it. I have several suggestions. I don't want anybody to take my suggestion.
Save them for contact.
Yeah, don't give it away.
Well, one I have is there's anchors right in front of the yacht club. I think you'd save that for the new yacht club and call it the Rusty Anchor Restaurant at the Ocean Pines Marina. That would be one suggestion. I have another one. I won't give that one out.
Must be better.
But I think it should be renamed. The only other place I know the yacht club is in Bethesda, Maryland. It's a pickup joint at night. And that's
We
the
would
yacht-
ask how you know.
But it's called the Bethesda Yacht Club.
Teresa, we need to do a marketing study on the meeting. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Could you ask him the address of the Bethesda?
That's right.
I can tell you that.
Woodell Avenue.
Okay, before we get too far afield here,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, next thing, old business, we need to move, Dave, to your budgetary motion next.
Are we on the budget?
Well, I don't want to get, the next thing on the agenda is the final review of the budget. We need to cover your motion. Will we do that?
Okay, well, I did have one before that, though. It's still an old business, and that's the charter.
That's going to come after the budget we discussed.
After the
Agenda.
budget,
Okay.
Okay. All right. I've submitted this motion already to the board for their review. I've had some comments on it. My motion is amend the draft budget by reducing the 2014 historic reserve contribution by $760,230, which comes out to be exactly 90 assessment dollars. With the realized savings, make the following further budget adjustments. Reduce the proposed assessment increase by $253,410, or 30 assessment dollars. Redirect $337,880, $40 per member, into the Gulf Drainage Reserve. Start work on 2 holes this year, taking no more than 1 hole out of play at a time. And I'll say that the intent, although it's not part of this motion because future boards will have to do that, is to complete the remaining holes by the end of 2018 by proceeding at the same pace. Redirect $168,940, or $20 per member, into the road reserve fund. So basically, we're redirecting 60 assessment dollars, and we're reducing the proposed increase in assessment by 30 assessment dollars. Now, the purpose and effect. The adjustments will begin to have the following beneficial effects, in my opinion. It will begin to restore the balance of the historic reserve to its originally intended balance of $2.5 to $3 million. When we started the 5-year plan a long time ago, one aspect sort of little remark on was one objective was to reduce or to increase the historic reserve, just replacement reserve at that time, by $500,000 in order to again look at the average expenditures over a fairly long period of time and say, which tend to be fairly uniform, and to go back very obviously from year to year, and to basically provide us more of a buffer. So that basically brought the intended target up to $2.5 million. And that, again, it's pretty close, varies. At the same time, it takes into account the fact that historical reserve right now, that is to say this motion does, in its present state, unfortunately, we have borrowed a great deal of money from the historic reserve. We borrowed a great deal of money from ourselves in lieu of going out with a loan, and that's, I think, up to about $2.9 million. So the historic reserve is basically also our bank, and we're using it that way. As projected, the draft budget over the next 4 years, the historic reserve balance is still, after this motion, be well over its originally intended goal. The 5-year funding, including operational deficit recovery, will continue as planned. That is to say, there's no change to the 5-year plan. We are still putting that money, actually it's the last year, and where we'll put in, I think, $1,095,000 into the 5-year plan for major facilities. We spend on major facilities. Redirecting funds to the roads reserve will complement the casino funds and bring the reserve contribution closer to where it was when state funds were used. And Art has pointed out several times during these meetings that we have not in the past used assessment dollars to fund our roads. We used state road funds to do that, which were abruptly cut off a couple of years ago. Since then, we've replanned and stretched things out and basically come up with an acceptable way to maintain the roads at a minimum level. But it's not the same thing as we were doing before when we had all the money. That's reasonably obvious, I hope. It will enable a continuation of the aggressive and well-planned program that was in place before the funds were cut. Now, redirecting the funds to the Golf Drainage Reserve. That'll enable a more rapid completion of a very successful course drainage program that until a few years ago was approved by multiple boards over a period of time and was fully intended to be completed. It still is intended to be completed. What I believe this will do is accelerate that beyond what's in the current budget plan. And you might say, why do that? Well, because we've invested, in my mind, a lot of money in the golf course. I mean, we're talking about a $900,000 lease program. We've spent $750 on that, and then we've taken other money and semi-borrowed it through a lifetime membership program. And there's other funds that we've taken. But we've put money in, including the fast drainage, an awful lot of money in the golf course. One of the reasons we did the Greens program, one of the rationale was to give Billy Casper a chance to get the continued outside play and to get our operational funds up. Well, that didn't work out this year. But it's not done. So when these are done and we have a budget now that says they're going to turn the thing around. But if they do turn it around, the people who have played golf, are familiar with the course, will know that it's not done. I mean, we have holes that are in really bad conditions, have been for some time. And we have drainage, not just drainage for the homes around those homes is not being done. I believe it should be. I think this is a worthwhile expenditure of funds to do this. And we're not talking about doing something we won't do down the line anyway. So at any rate, that's my motion. That's the way it's.
Motion, do I have a second? Barney, second. All right, discussion.
So I understand this. What's the long-term effect of this? I mean, I'm looking at it, it looks to me like there's absolutely no pain whatsoever. I mean, as far as the reserves. I mean, we're never in a negative, everything's paid, and we still have almost $7 million in the bank. In historical reserves, April 30th, 2018. We got $6 million in 17. We got $5.5 million in 16. We got five. I mean, it's working, right?
Well, the one impact, I think, and it was brought up in a memo back to me last night, comments on it, was that, you know, we're going to be looking at, in June, a whole list of that Bob is going to provide. I don't know what it's going to look like. I think yes, you can figure it out yourselves. What are our replacement needs going into the future? Now, the last version I've seen of that list was that it contained apples and oranges. I mean, it contained some small things, some big things. I mean, take a country club that was on the list, and actually, a country club is still in the 5-year budget that we have this year. Now, I would maintain that it has no effect on that. The major items on that list, and major is defined as we reminded the other night, over $500,000. We never intended the replacement reserve to cover those items. There's some, what is it, 1,500, Bob? Other things that we own, a huge number of things, from small things to big things, that are also failing and which have to be replaced and are done according to a schedule by our Arcoma. Now, the interesting thing about that schedule is that it's reasonably consistent over the years. The amount of money we put in, the amount of money we take out, and the balance that we maintain. That's why we had that motion a long time ago. To bump it up to $500,000 to give us a little more, wiggle room in terms of funding. We're still going to fund some of the items on the list. Will still be funded out of Bob's list, whatever it is going to be funded out of that replacement reserve. The items over $500,000, and there will be more than we had originally intended because they keep popping up, but are intended to be funded out of the 5-year plan funding of the vehicle. Now, you might say, yes, well, what is that? Well, it's $1 million a year. $1,095,000 a year. This is the last year, but every year from now until forever, that money is coming in to pay our major facilities. Now, it is true that in 2017 is the first year that we'll actually pay off the debt for the yacht club. We went into it. But basically, there is no long-term impact. There is none. I mean, we will not have all of the funds, obviously, to borrow from, in a few years. But we will start to accumulate the funds needed to replace our major facilities. This is not what the intended vehicle was. Now, anyway, I could go into why it's, depreciation and the fact that we are depreciating items that we didn't depreciate before, and I know all that. But nevertheless, this is a way to get the train back on the track. The fact of the matter is that we borrowed close to $3 million out of this fund, which was never intended. And what we did intend is to pay through a 5-year plan, which we've been paying for the last 5 years, to pay for those facilities. Answer your question, Lynn?
I think so.
No, to make the statement that we borrowed the money but never intended, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you're saying, because the reality is, as you said, the historical column is the bank, and as opposed to borrowing from someone else, we borrowed from ourselves. So the 5-year plan didn't start off with all the money in it. It's collected year over year over year. So, you know, we borrowed from our own bank as opposed to paying somebody else's interest. And the 5-year plan, you know, pays for these things as you go forward. My question is that what your proposal referenced was that the balance of our reserves is supposed to be 3 million.
That was the target.
That was the target. There is a column in that page that I need to make sure we get clarification on. There's a column called Operation Fund Recovery, which by 2018 has $1 million in it. The reality is that that column, for all intents and purposes, needs to be taken out of the bottom line because the IRS gets paid out of that. $500,000 worth of losses gets paid out of that. And if we have any losses this year, it gets paid out of that. So for all intents and purposes, that $1 million, which is in the net 4.7, which is in the bottom right-hand corner of the chart that was provided, not 7 million, but 4.7 million. $1 million of that is actually not in the bottom line. It's going to be used to pay off the IRS and debts we have, correct?
You're mixing a couple things up, Tom.
Okay.
I am talking about the far left-hand column, the historic reserve column. The far right-hand column, the operational recovery, you stated correctly. We know what's happening to that, and nothing, that'll continue. We'll make I think it's $20 payment, assessment payment this year into that. We're going to and actually next year too, and as long as we need to make sure that all that's, including potential IRS future liabilities, are covered. We've talked about
Let's
that.
just be clear here. You're talking about the left-hand column being historical amount, which is $6 million at the end of 2018. Correct. But the 5-year plan is still 2.959, so it's $3 million. So if you want to talk about just the left side of the column, you've got 6 million minus 3 million that's still in debt for the 5-year plan. You're right at the $3 million figure that you say is the objective. So I mean, the 4.7, which takes into account all of our funds, has $1 million in it that's going to be spent for IRS. So I'm trying to clarify.
Okay. What will happen is that, in fact, the monies in the reserve will go down after you subtract the money that's owed to it. You will go down below that $2.5 million target. Once you consider the fact that we need the cash flow out of that fund, it'll probably get down to, I think, like my memory serves, right about 1.2 million. However, it will go rapidly up again as we repay and use $1 million out of the 5-year fund each year to pay back into it. So at the end, you'll end up above the target.
The money that is in the historical column is in fact actual depreciation of real assets that we have in Ocean Pines. That's real depreciation for things that will have to be replaced. So this building at some point will have to be replaced. Depreciation on huge trucks. The big ticket items are supposedly in the 5-year plan. But you're talking about utilizing the depreciation of an asset. And now it's one thing to borrow against this account so that you still know you owe the money back for that asset you're going to have to replace. You are literally redirecting, in your own words, you're redirecting the depreciation of this asset in order to pay for something else. That's really what you're doing. I mean, it's a very creative, interesting way of doing it, but the reality is you're taking the depreciation and reapplying it somewhere else so that we don't have the money to replace this other asset. Is that not correct?
No, that's not correct.
It's not correct.
Can I just, the assistant treasurer did this and just handed it to you, so if you want, it's just more information about depreciation total. So it may help just a little bit.
All right, Marty, go ahead.
Okay, we're talking about the historic, look, we have to fund depreciation. This year, I'm looking at two sheets. I'm looking at the Schedule 9, which is the way it is right now. And then I'm looking at this other one that also says Schedule 9, it's got the reappointment of the money. Now, historical reserves on the new one, if you're just looking at historical reserves, is not only $6.1 million balance at the end, but all depreciation has been funded. This year, the funding on both sheets for depreciation is $846,300. $846,300. Doesn't change. So the only real difference is we're now not overfunded $6.9 million. We're overfunded $6.1 million at the bottom of the column. Now, when you mentioned also the $1.19 million in the recovery fund, that's on both. I mean, that doesn't change.
No, but I mean, reality is that,
It does take it out of both.
yeah, when you look at the I look at the bottom line for the whole organization, and according to this chart, we have $4.7 million in reserves of various kinds. The end of 2018, $1 million of that is actually going to be spent for the IRS in shortfalls in operation.
I'll buy that, but that's in either one of these.
Well, that's fine, but the intent
So the
is.
difference is still only 200,000 plus. Isn't it?
Bottom line is, for the organization, at the end of 2018, that page says we're going to have $4.7 million. Reality is, you can't count that million plus that is in the operations report. You got to take that out of the number. So you're sitting there 3.7
Versus 3.9.
which
With
is
an unknown.
with an unknown. But
The unknown is we don't know what we're gonna need.
This has got 4.4 million spending in it, new, out of the 5-year plan.
Okay, well,
And
the
6
yacht
million,
club was
3
$4.3
spending
million.
out of depreciation. How much do we spend every year?
Well, the new yacht club was $4.3 million.
Yep,
That's the five.
and that's paid for in this, by the way.
Correct.
Borrowed.
Paid
It's
for.
not borrowed. It's
How to
borrowed.
get there?
It's borrowed. It's borrowed.
Borrowed from us.
Exactly right.
Borrowed
Now,
from
look,
us, but it's paid back.
If you want to make the argument that we're going to need the reserve fund as a future bank to keep borrowing money from, then you can raise the cost of that. I mean, the amount of money that's in that fund. But in fact, that's not what we said. What we said was that we would use the 5-year plan to do those major facilities. You know, the consistency of these numbers is, you know, if you go across the contributions to the historic reserve, you know, you see 1.2, 1.4. And then, you know, you get to a certain point, and the expenditures, 1.3, 1.770. And then you get a 2.3 in 2009. Where did that come from? How come we got, you know, we're going more? Well, where it came from was the fact we built a community center. And we didn't have a 5-year plan to do it with.
And the swimming racket club.
And, no,
And
the Swimming Racket Club, corrected Marty, the Swimming Racket Club came out of the 5-year plan. We did that afterwards. But,
Okay.
so that was a little blip in the thing, but if you look, it's very consistent. The average number of expenditures that we made over that period from, I think, going back from 2012, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 years, was $1.2 million. That was the average expenditures out of the reserve. the average balance in the reserve was $2.6 million. It was pretty much right on target. Now, next year, that balance is, or I should say this past year, that balance went up by 29%. It went up 29%. Okay, well, why? In the budget year, it's going to go up 102%, and it's going to go up every year as you project it outwards. Every year. In fact, the problem is that when you're depreciating assets, you've been in long depreciation arguments, and I'm not an expert, but I've read enough about it over, it comes up a lot on boards. And there are different views of it. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, but from a management standpoint, though, depreciation can be looked at as looking at and computing the amount of money that you need to replace an asset. Now, what ART does, if you're talking about unit assets, and a unit asset can be big or small. I mean, it can be a computer, or it can be a truck, or maybe something bigger than a truck. But basically, if you're looking at replacing unit assets in a large number, when you've got a whole aggregate, you can get a pretty good prediction of what you're going to need to spend. It works out that way, now, on the average, every year, and what you need to contribute. But once you put a building into this building, or any building, yacht club, sir, you're talking about a whole different way that people can depreciate that. I mean, you're looking at replacing components of those things over a long period of time. The formula just doesn't work. And fitting it into this formula, I believe, is the wrong thing to do.
I have a reminder of what FO3 says, so too, so might be helpful.
So you're highlighting something here, Gary.
Yeah, it's the depreciation line. I
Well,
know.
there are a couple highlights from the resolution.
Let's see.
Counter funded.
Oh, yeah, I thought it, my signature's on the back of it.
I didn't mention that.
Well, no, that's fine. I'm pretty familiar with it, actually, I mean, the issue of depreciation, I do not believe we're going to. I have to say that I know what ART does. I mean, I've seen the sheets. I've gone through them. I do think at some point they bear, how you want to say, closer consideration as we move forward. I really believe that. But on the other hand, right now, the simple numbers say, here's what we've been spending. Here's what we've been maintaining as a balance. It's been on time, and now it's not. And what this proposal does is put the train back on the rails, in my estimation. Yes, that motion, this motion.
What Terry has raised here in this document is that, let me see if, as I thought about it when I looked at this, it took me about 45 minutes to figure out everything that was, I think I've got it figured out. This was
More than that to write.
I figured it. In essence, you're redirecting depreciation dollars for high nameplates, depreciation, and you're putting it into golf drainage. You're taking the microphone stand depreciation and putting it into roads. And you're not charging the membership in the budget for the depreciation of this coffee cup. But the realities are, this says we are to charge all depreciation. So you may want to reallocate. If you want to, charge for the roads in the assessment, then put it in the assessment. I mean, we went through a whole discussion about about roads and whether the assessment was in the assessment, with depreciation of the roads, whether it was in the assessment or not. It's not. And if you want to assess the membership for the depreciation of the roads, it's on the books as depreciated, but we're not charging the membership. Basically, you're not charging $30, and you're reallocating, and moving money from one column to another. As I understand the net of the whole thing, you're not charging 30. You're moving $40 into drainage and $20 into roads.
What we're doing is taking, I'll call them the small assets, because some of them are pretty darn big, and could go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'll take the things that have been and hit a steady state over all of these years, or it's stable, and continue to fund those and not take a dime out of them. The average over, as I already said, the average expenditure is 1.237 million over the last 6-7 years. The average balance 2.7 million over the last 7 years, and that included a community center in there. I'm saying that we understood that, in fact, depreciation could not be used as a basis for the replacement of assets when we didn't do it. I mean, Tom, you cannot forget that we took an estimated $750,000 out of this, the depreciation reserve to pay for something which was never depreciated. Never. I mean, if we didn't put any money in there.
Guess what? There are going to be expenditures in an organization like this that come up that we have to spend
Well,
that may not be depreciated.
You know,
If you want to set up, if you want to set up a separate fund,
A rainy
a
day.
rainy day fund, and set aside for those things that you didn't know were going to happen, then have at it. We can do that.
well, you can.
I mean, I'm not arguing. I'm just trying to make sure we understand what it is you're doing here.
Well, what I'm specifically doing is saying that when it comes to large assets, that we have to treat those, and we knew this differently. I mean, a yacht club wasn't depreciated. It was $300,000 worth, and we didn't have the money to do it. Well, I should have depreciated and we should have been put up. No, not necessarily. We should do exactly what we're doing, which is put the money into a fund and pay for it and other major assets that we have to replace. There's a good reason for that beyond just the simple fact of depreciation. It's also how you take an asset like a yacht club, where the actual value of it depends so much more on what you've replaced as you've had it over the years and how well you've maintained it.
I can't argue with any of that.
This will not
Yes,
hurt.
Just as I'm trying to understand, this tab 21 reserves,
Yep.
it could be wrong here. It currently shows a contribution of $1,598,773 in historical reserves for this budget. The budget we have before us today. It then adds $240,000 more in lifetime membership sales. Total capital additions or depreciation spending is $846,300. Okay? If you take out the money that he suggested, move it all around, give 30 of it back to the membership where it belongs, that $1,598,773 becomes $858,543. We have funded all the depreciation being spent without the 240 in sales. If you include the 240 in sales, we have 240,000 ahead. Still overfunding it.
Mr. President, I think you have to distinguish between cost and expense to replace. They are not the same things. I also think you have to look at F05, which was just passed around. F03. Paragraph 6, subparagraph A, is very clear. It says, the annual budget shall include amounts to fund the estimated requirements of each reserve account. These amounts shall not be less than the annual depreciation cost. Depreciation shall be allocated to each cost center to which it applies. Mr. Carmine, are we in compliance with that in the budget you presented to the board? Does this change that compliance? Yes, it does. Thank you. Under paragraph 8, withdrawal, transfer, or commitment of funds, it very carefully says reserve funds shall not be expended or transferred for purposes other than those for which the fund was established unless approved by a 2/3 majority vote of the entire board. So in order to approve Mr. Stevens' motion today, we need a 2/3 vote. Third, and this one I think is what we're all quietly talking past, and it's the graveyard out there, folks. We, as a board, I think voted real close to 7-0 to tell the general manager to put together a complete capital analysis and capital replacement funding plan by June of this year to present to the board to vote on, so that we actually know what the numbers are or what a good planning number is for each one of these accounts. I submit to you that historic study and historic numbers and historic expenditures are changing rather rapidly because some of our historic figures out there are nearing points where they're no longer usable and have to be replaced. Witness the building you're sitting in. Witness the yacht club. Witness the yacht club pool. Witness the beach club pool. And then witness the beach club building. The fact that the the country club building is structurally sound but mechanically very deficient. Witness the fact that we need a new cart barn, and frankly, probably in about a year or so, we're going to need new carts at $5,000 or $6,000 a pop. This year, we need new batteries for them at $500 a pop. You don't know, David. I'm sorry that you can't. I can't sit here and agree that taking $30 out of the reserves is right or wrong at this point in time. All I know is that if you don't have that $30 in the reserves when you need it, and we'll know that in June, where are you going to get it? You can't borrow it from yourself. You just got rid of the borrowing. So instead of changing our reserve account, let's go ahead the way you started planning 4 years ago and continue with that. And let's continue to stay in sync with FO3 in terms of what it says. Got a lot of changing to do here if you want to start changing these numbers.
What you're doing, Dan, is ignoring the fact that 5 years ago we recognized an issue of major facilities which had no reserves associated with them.
Not ignoring it at all, sir. Excuse me, if I may.
Well,
I'm not ignoring
a whole
that.
list of things that you said we're going to take the money out of the reserves and we won't be able to pay for them. Major items. But guess what? We have another reserve that is intended to pay for those.
Yes.
And maybe it won't do it as fast as we like, and maybe it won't contain as much money as we like. But it's there for that purpose.
Yes, sir. And we just authorized the last contract for the yacht club pool. So we're in for about $5.2 million that we didn't have, that we borrowed from the Historic Reserve Bank in order to do it.
And what you're suggesting is that these reserves, which you say are from depreciation or for specific assets, and which in fact are, is that for those 1,500 assets that we've depreciated all along. But you're saying that these reserves should be a slush fund or a bank so that we can borrow money against other things, and that they're not intended for.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply reading what FO3 says they are. And I just asked our controller what they are, and he just told us.
You know what? The difference and the issue there is what exactly is contained in that depreciation cost. And when FO3 was written, the depreciation cost, let's see, 2009, let's look at it. We had a depreciation balance in 2009 of $2,446, $2,446,985. Okay, $2.5 million back then. Now, in 2014, we have a balance of $5,237,000, and we're planning in 2018, as we ramp this up, to get up to just under $7 million in these funds.
Yeah,
So there's quite a big difference when this was written. Marty, go ahead.
one key here, Dan, with all due respect, the swimming pool and the deck ain't in this budget. It's already paid for. It's paid for. Doesn't have any effect on this at all.
Swimming pool deck where? Which one?
At the yacht club,
It's paid for and doesn't have any effect on this
not
budget?
on this budget. No,
It's baked into which number, Art? That $1 million?
It's all paid for in last year's budget. Or this year's budget.
It's in this year's budget. It's not, so you're right. It's not in the 2013/14 budget. You made your point.
That's spend money twice.
Okay.
I think, Mr. President, also, if I could ask, the board's desires may not be to do this, but our assistant treasurer and officer of the company just handed us an overview of replacement reserve account as of April 30th, 2012, which I think I understand, but I'm not sure. I don't know if everybody at the table understands, but is not sure, but it's very nice. We could have him stand up and explain it.
I really don't believe that's relevant to the question, and I am Chair. This motion on the floor.
Yes.
Which motion are we talking
I move to set aside the regular
Dave's
order.
motion.
Oh, Dave, all right.
Dave's motion is on the floor.
My motion is on the floor.
That's right, it is.
Do you wish to call the question?
No, sir, I wish to table your motion until we can have a discussion, including the assistant treasurer. That's a demand motion, and it steps past yours, Mr. Parliamentarian. Is there a second for
about?
that?
I will second.
Those in favor of tabling the motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
Okay. Motion's tabled temporarily. I will open the floor to Terry and Joe, or whoever you
Yeah,
want.
I'd like to hand this over to you.
Is there a microphone that I need? Do I need a microphone?
Yes, you do, because
Okay.
of the folks watching on TV and the internet.
Thank you. Let me clarify. I did hand out a sheet here, and what it is the overview of replacement reserve account at April 30, 2012. The question continues to come up repeatedly, and I understand the reason for it. How much do we need in the replacement reserve account? As I said the other night at the meeting, one has to go back to the purpose of that particular reserve account. And its purpose is to deposit into that account annually at least the depreciation expense on the assets that we have as an association, and then to withdraw from that account as needed the funds for major replacement, for not just major, for replacement of all those assets that are being replaced, period. The question is, how much do we need, or should we have in there?
Let me make sure I'm clear here, Pete. Regardless of how we split up the money and what accounts we put them in or don't put them in, we have to depreciate our assets.
Well, generally accepted accounting principles requires that you expense depreciation. Funding depreciation is a board choice and has been the choice of this association for almost, better than 30 years. The way this association has chosen historically to fund its capital asset purchases, and that includes replacements and major repairs and renovations, is through the mechanism of charging in each year's annual assessment for not only operating costs, cutting the lawns, the police, the fire, etc., but also the capital costs. The capital cost, quite simply, is something called depreciation. That's not complex, I don't think, when you consider the fact that you buy an asset, if it's $100,000, is going to last you 10 years, you don't record an expense in the year of acquisition of $100,000. That would be silly, and also in violation of generally accepted accounting principles. What you do instead is to then allocate the cost of that asset over its period of useful life, which in this case would be 10 years. You take $10,000 a year, and our policy historically has been to deposit that $10,000. Two things. Number one, we build the 10,000 in my example into the dues, thus your depreciation in the tab in your binders of all the depreciation expense added up, and then you bill the members for that $10, their proportionate share of it, the 10,000, and then you put it in the capital replacement reserve fund, the historic fund. And then you expend from that fund what's needed. Now, we're funding depreciation as a matter of policy. So we ought to have, based on that, in that account, at any given time, the amount of accumulated depreciation. Because when you expense the depreciation, you write down the asset by putting into the accumulated depreciation. That amount in the schedule here on our financial statements at the end of April for the audit report is $37 million. Now, we also have land included in that. I beg your pardon, that's the assets and costs. The actual accumulated depreciation is down the bottom related to the upstairs assets of $19 million, but 5.7 of that relates to roads, which historically, as we've all said, has been funded not through annual charges to our members, but rather we had a different funding source. So we did not fund any depreciation expense related to the road. So you take the $5.7 million from the 19, and theoretically we should have $13.4 million instead of 3.3. So it reminds me a little bit of Social Security. You fund based on future benefits. You put it into the fund. I guess people borrow from it, haven't they? In any event, the answer is not what we need to get past the next year or two in Social Security or in Ocean Pines reserve account, but rather, what is it intended for? It's intended for the long-term expenditures required based on the historic depreciation. In Social Security, it's a little different matter, but it's long-term related. So you can't just look at what we need for the next year or two and say, oh, we only need $2 million. Not so. The policy has been historically to charge our members each and every year their proportionate share of the annual depreciation cost. To take those monies, put them in the historic replacement reserve fund, and then expend from that. The problem is, of course, we do that on a cost basis. And as examples that have been cited here today, and I have cited in previous cases, the historic cost of the building that we're in today was $363,000. And those monies were actually put into, I call it the separate piggy bank for the depreciation expense. Everything's fine and dandy. We depreciated that building over its life, put the $363,000 in the bank account, then it came time to take the money out. It was a tad short. The cost was $1,750,000. Same thing now with the yacht club. We're going to spend, authorized, it's underway, we're very pleased about that, $4.3 million. Well, what do you think is in the big piggy bank for that? Something, Art, in the neighborhood of $1 million, maybe. In the neighborhood of $1 million. So inflation, ladies and gentlemen, has taken its toll. So when we look at the reserve balance at any particular point in time, which you're doing here this morning, and saying, oh, we have plenty in there, or we don't have enough, consider the purpose of that fund. That fund was to accumulate the funds required in time and when necessary to replace or repair the physical assets of this community, asset by asset. Tom, you pointed to the sign, the coffee cup, we got this building, we got police cars, we got tractors, we got all those assets, that 1,500 in total assets that have been mentioned, they all have the same methodology used. So contrary to what Mr. Stevens said a few minutes ago, the principle works whether it's a police car or a building. The building's a little different because it's not a building all by itself. You got components of the building. The equipment in the building might have 10 years with a piece of kitchen equipment. The building shell itself might be 40 years, generally is building. But you've got components within that building that will have a lesser life than the 40. And you actually depreciate those components accordingly. So at the end of the day, we have taken every one of our assets each and every year, Art, through a computer program, and every organization does this, by the way. You compute the actual cost-based depreciation, which is required under generally accepted accounting principles, and you get a number. Now what you do with that number is then up to the organization. This organization has chosen historically over 30 years worth to take and annually take those funds, set them aside, put them in the big kitty for ultimate use, and that's what we have. So the replacement reserve fund historic column is now at a certain level, but the accumulated depreciation, which means what should be there, is substantially more. One last comment. When the board approved, and I was not then on the board, the first year of the 5-year plan, it did so in recognition of the fact that the historic fund was simply not enough to cover the very large looming costs, capital costs coming down the road in the very near term. And that was the reason for that. That was also the reason, by the way, the $150 increase 2 years earlier. But that all went away, by the way. The comment I made the other night suggesting that 150 is still flowing in. As anybody who has read my 103 memo, Ray, that money is no longer coming in. It was, anyway, that's the end of it. So right now we have this sheet, I think, which is instructive in terms of what we need to do. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on this sheet.
I have 2 comments. One, why I was opposed to our assistant treasurer is because our duly elected treasurer is sitting at the table. And everybody knows Pete and I have never, ever agreed on how much is too much. And the second reason is when Pete was the assistant treasurer, or the treasurer, and a board member just a year ago, he either initiated or supported 2 unbudgeted projects totaling over $2.3 million. One was an offer for the Pine Shores Golf Course property for $1.4 million cash. This is why I don't want a lot of money in the bank, okay? And I'm going to support Dave's motion when we get back to it.
Any questions of Pete?
A quick comment.
I used the page.
I'll try.
My notes on the back.
Yeah. The reason I didn't want to get into this is because it's something that you simply can't decide, in a room. I see Pete's account. I think it's an oversimplification. I think Pete said things which, point to the fact that it is. I mean, the whole area of how you depreciate and what you depreciate is based upon oversimplifications to a large extent. I mean, you can depreciate a large number of relatively like valued items, and in the aggregate, you're going to come up with a pretty good number. When you have anomalies or items that are much higher value, that number is going to turn out to be skewed. You can, we've looked at, say, okay, everything was really, really in this depreciation account, in this replacement reserve account. But as Marty's sort of alluding to, look at what's happened to it. When we came to the country club, we said, oops, that wasn't depreciated enough. And we got to go out and get another $1.5 million thereabouts. When we came to the greens, we say they weren't depreciated at all. Okay, and there was quite an argument, a discussion, anyway, not much of an argument, discussion on whether or not we should, it was even legal to take those things out. I believe it wasn't to this day. We took undepreciated assets and took them out of a reserve, which was built up entirely of depreciated assets, as Pete just told you. You can use reserves, or depreciation as a means of scheduling your buying, if you want. I don't know, this year, unlike last year's, past years, our budget said we're going to buy 5 trucks. We're going to buy 5 trucks. Okay, I said, well, that sounds like a lot of trucks, in different places for different uses, different purposes. And the same reason that was given in each one of the cases, the little sheets that are in our book, is that they're 10 years old. Well, that's probably, I'm thinking, and actually Sharon told me that, so I don't want to create a spot, Sharon, but that comes from a depreciation schedule. It says after 10 years, the thing's fully depreciated, sell it, or do something with that. I still don't know what that is exactly, but that's not how people actually budget their lives, and it's not how organizations should budget. Does a truck with 50,000 miles on it and, the same replacement time as a truck with 200,000? Maybe, no, but that's just an example. I'm just my main point is that there are many ways to use depreciation. It's a useful tool, but there are many ways to use it. And those ways are what we're really talking about, not just the fact that we do depreciate. Jerry?
I just want to make one comment. When I took on the position of treasurer of the organization, I made it well known that I'm not an accountant, and that is one of the reasons why we have Pete. And it is my right and responsibility to hand something off to Pete, who has been in the financial industry for a very long time, for his expertise, and I'm smart enough to know when to do that.
Of course it is. What?
Any other,
Tom, I'll sit down, but I have one comment.
Wait, it won't be the last comment if you make that. I'll promise you.
What was stated a moment ago is simply not true. That is, vehicles are replaced or assets are replaced, not when the schedule says that the depreciation ends. Bob Thompson can address this. It is when, in the judgment of the people responsible, the asset has outserved its useful life. And Bob, we have 13-year examples of 10-year trucks being depreciated over 10, 13,
I'm only talking about what's in this budget and what it says.
the reality is, all right, I'm not going to relive, we've had 5 or 6 separate budget discussions. That topic has come up at least 3 times. At least 3 times we have explained the fact that it is not just the mileage on the truck that establishes whether the request for a new truck is done or not. It's the condition of the truck and many other things. So we've been down that road. That is a sidetrack from the motion. I'm going to put the motion back onto the table.
Mr. President, I was just going to enter a motion to place Mr. Stevens' motion back on the table. It does require a second and a vote.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Okay, his motion's back on the table. Short of repeating ourselves, are there any other questions or comments that anybody wants to make?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, just one, and that is with respect to FO3. This motion does, in fact, transfer for purposes other than those for which the funds were established, and therefore must be approved by a 2/3 majority of the board. That's 5 votes out of 7.
I disagree with that.
Go right ahead.
What was that? You throwing things?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to call the question on this motion. All those in favor of the motion that we've just been discussing for Bell? Marty, you have your hand up. Oh, you're ready? You're voting already, huh? Okay, now officially the vote. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Motion failed. Okay, next issue is, and I just said we've had multiple days of meetings on budgets. They've all been in the public. And we are at the stage now of final motion for the budget.
Question. Have we gotten a copy of the final numbers? When?
Can I give you an update? They were emailed out, and
They were emailed out?
they were,
When?
we printed it yesterday.
After 4?
Not sure exactly what time. It was probably between 4 and 5.
Okay,
We
that's
filed
why
a copy and everything.
No big deal. I just haven't seen it.
Would you like to give
This is your,
a 5-minute? Yeah.
okay.
Nobody's,
There's been a request for a 5-minute break, and that will be granted.
Watch out for the cord, guys.
Some dummies are tripping over it.
Yeah. Some pulling us. And I know the microphone's on.
What is the assessment about this budget? 216 or 2?
All right.
Yeah, well, that's the part.
I couldn't say that.
Let's get started.
read this motion, or actually, I'll read the motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors hereby approves the proposed budget for fiscal year 2014, which budget was modified following presentation to the membership at public hearing on February 2nd, 2013, and which budget reflects total revenues of $9,686,289 and operating expenses and transfers of the same amount, basic annual assessment of $914, and capital expenditures of $4,330,000.
Need a second on the
I'll
motion?
second the motion.
Very second the motion, all right. Motion's on the table. Discussion. We've met numerous times already.
Can you, I'm sorry, but,
It's coming.
oh, it's coming, okay.
Sorry.
It's the easy and simple question of what happens to, what's the actual difference between this year and next year, 914, versus what, 800 and something?
873.
873 to 914.
873 to 914, that's $41, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
It's a reduction of $2 from the original.
Yeah,
All right.
that's actually on this sheet that he's, the top sheet.
Well,
Top
okay,
sheet.
but the breakdown on that roughly is that we've got $3 going into our drainage reserve fund. We've got $30 going into our capital reserve fund, and we've got $8 going to an operation, the overall operations increase.
That's correct.
And this represents, for the record, the first time operations has been increased in how many years? Three, at least three.
Whoa, wait a minute.
No, it was $10 2 years ago.
2 years.
Okay, so this will be the first time in 2 years, and it's only an $8 increase.
And it was 10. And it's reduced to 15.
Thank you.
Any other clarification, questions?
What's the total budget? Is it not, what, 9? I mean, that doesn't include sales and, does the 968628 includes reserves? Everything, right? Is that correct?
It's just operating revenues, expenses.
Assessments.
Operating revenues minus expenses. Budget is 0.
So the board, through 20 meetings, 20 meetings, we've captured $17,000 improvement out of a $9 million budget. I believe we should adjourn the meeting and all immediately leave for Washington, D.C. Because clearly we're as inept as they are.
Thank you, Mike.
Is that a motion?
Is that a
No,
motion?
the motion's made. It's called for discussion.
All right,
Are you going to vote against Marty?
I think so.
All right.
The three of the last three I've had.
I'm calling the question. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion passed. Next thing on the agenda is status of charter. Dave? Okay. Took a break at the wrong moment.
May I ask if we can amend the rules such that Jim Trummell, who's sitting in the back, can help me out if I really
Sure.
need it?
No, absolutely.
But otherwise, I won't put him.
By all means. Jim, keep us honest up there.
Basically, the charter. Jim and his committee, bylaws and resolution, have been laboring on the charter.
Before you get started, I just thought of something I need to tie up.
My God.
As far as the budget being available online and available and up to date for people to see it, what couple days, what?
Probably Tuesday. Yeah,
Tuesday.
It's going to be a few days. I mean, we've got.
I'm just trying to level set the expectation here.
Yeah.
So it'll be early.
By midweek.
By
Let's go
midweek next week.
That gives us time to make sure.
That's fine. Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure we were going to tie that up.
But they can start planning where they're gonna blow that $2 right now.
Okay, it's all yours.
I'm going to pull it up and get more Okay, the charter, Jim and his committee have been working, and this goes back a long time, back to Al Bridgman, actually. And then it was postponed because of the resolutions. But anyway, they have a charter, a revised charter. The charter has been on the webpage, both the new charter, proposed new charter draft, and also the comparison to the old charter, with a statement that shows here's what the changes from the new to the old. It's there for review. What we need to do next is set a time for the approval of the charter. Jim and I have talked, and I've passed this on to Tom. I think the appropriate time would be at a regular board meeting. Prior to a regular board meeting. And by the way, that's mandated by the existing charter, is that we do this. We have met the notification requirements by putting it in the quarterly report that such a meeting would be held in the future, and that the charter is on the webpage. We have Jim sent the charter back over to Joe Moore, who went through it, and feel free to comment if you want, Joe. But basically went through it, sent the marked up copy back to Tom and Bob and to Jim. I have a copy of it too. I'm going to do the changes. So, what do we have to do? We have to put the new, I think we should put the legal charter and replace put that, I'll call it the legal charter, the one that has been marked up by Joe. Put that out on the webpage so people can see it. I think I'm fair, and you can just correct me if you want, but I think there are no substantive changes. There's some changes in style and other types of corrections. Okay, so that's the one thing. The second thing is to agree on, the meeting date before the next, and I would say before the April meeting, and that may be because I'm not going to be here next month, but next month too. And what the board has to do then, before then, is actually read the changes, agree on them, ask questions, and so forth. Okay, now, and then actually execute it. Did I forget something, Jim? Probably.
Well, one question is whether or not each of the board members have the copy as received from Joe Moore. Okay, that needs to be done.
Okay. Now that's another thing to be done. If there is no objection, Jim has volunteered to work with Teresa to take care of the changes on the web page. And since he has the marked up copies by Joe Moore, to send them out to the rest of the board.
I don't know if I have that copy. I mean, I have the 12/11/12 revision.
That is fine. So that's the draft as it was. That's the draft as it was sent.
Have we gotten anything since then?
No.
Okay.
I have, Tom has, Bob has, and Jim has.
I'm left out again.
But it wasn't distributed to the board as a whole. But that's, now we're at the point where it needs to be.
Mr. President,
I will
And Jim
immediately do
volunteers to
so.
do that.
Well, point of clarification here, please, Jim, and you can do it at your committee's recommendation that's coming to the board. I would like to see, I've got the original charter that you've been working at to modify. I want to see the final charter that your committee is recommending, which is the one that has everybody's changes through the legal review in it, both in my hands and on the website. Because if you all don't agree with Mr. Moore's changes, then we still have some discussion there. In other words, as I understand this process, it's your committee who's delivering to the board a recommended new charter, word for word, period for period, cross T for cross T.
Okay, I'm going to partially disagree or be in conflict with what you said. The committee submitted a draft to Joe Moore, Mr. Moore. It was my understanding from a prior board meeting that instead of it going to the board and from the board to council, it would go from the committee to the council to the board. Now, although the draft, I'll call it a draft, from Mr. Moore came back to me with copies to Tom and Bob, I'm considering that to be from the council to the board. The committee has it in hand, has seen it, members of the committee have seen it, but we're not second guessing, if I can put it that way. We're not planning, have not planned, did not, and don't plan to make any comment on it as it came back from the council. We're considering that to be the I'll call it again, draft, the draft.
The draft,
That's
your
correct.
recommendation, you are not in contest with any more.
We're not.
You're actually going to let Mr. Moore have the opportunity to have the last word?
That was my intent. I understood that to be the intention. If I could,
I'd be very cautious about that. Jim, if I were
Yeah,
you.
but let me say, I hope that Jim sent, and I think I sent my compliments to him about the work that he had done. So, I mean, I normally, grab all the credit I can, but on this one, he did a very good job. Did a very good job.
what I'm going to send to those board members who haven't seen it yet, I will send Mr. Moore's complete attachment.
Okay.
And what that consists of is his cover letter, then the marked up version of the draft that he received, and then what I presume was a computer accept all changes draft. It all runs together. So you need to be careful of that when you get that. There's going to be three things: a cover letter, the marked up draft,
Yeah.
and the final draft.
Fine, right.
And it's the final draft which is to you from Mr. Moore to review and consider in your deliberations.
Thank you for your clarification.
Now, there is one other thing I think I can add. The matter of comments. So far, we have one, actually, which was given to Sharon and passed it on to me, and I immediately, as quickly as I could, passed it on to Jim. And I think it turns out in that case that, in fact, it was an issue that is covered by the Maryland Code, in which we reference. I believe that was Jim. And there is Jim did write an email. But
Procedure that was, we, and Jim, you're right on, we did agree as a board to let you work directly with council to get to this point to where we now receive back, for all intents and purposes, the committee and Joe Moore's unified suggestion, which will now be published to the rest of the board, correct? And the suggestion is now, and I agree, Dave, you need to be here when we take action on this. We'll look towards having this be a part of the agenda, a prior meeting too. In other words, when we start we'll have two meetings that day. We'll have the charter meeting, and then we'll go into the regular meeting in April.
Okay, I want to make sure that I understand all of that. The current charter requires that the board consider for approval or approve at a meeting called specifically for the amendment of the charter. Now, are we saying that there are explanatory remarks on the website? When you go in to look at the charter and the draft. And are we saying that I can put in that, and give it to Teresa, put in that the board will consider the charter at a special meeting the same day of the April meeting? Can we be that explicit at this time?
why not?
I don't,
We've already got the date
I
of
don't
the
see why
regular
not.
meeting, and
we will call a meeting to that in
Okay. Well, I just
compliance to the rules.
I just don't want to be putting in something, giving it to Teresa to post.
Barring
on the website.
objection from anybody on the board at this point, we will establish that we will call that meeting that day for that purpose.
Okay.
and you have authorization to proceed with Teresa. Now, the one thing I wanted to add, though, is we may, and may not, get comments from the membership
And if any of us should, my recommendation would be, Sharon gave it to me as liaison, I gave it to Jim, and Jim wrote a brief explanation of it. And so I would like Jim to be sort of the keeper of the comments, and that would be something that he would provide the board prior to this meeting, so we can consider the membership.
That's a good point. Let's set a date by which the input from the various board members, now everybody's getting the package, that has to be back to Jim, because at some point we have to have the final version so that it's published on the website and prior to us having that meeting. So what date should we establish as the last day for folks? Because we may have to have an interim meeting and discussion before we get to that meeting, unless we want to do it all at that meeting.
Well, if I understand correctly, you're asking to have the comments information in your job packet for that meeting. So whatever date that.
The meeting is, the April meeting is in the
Yeah.
or the March meeting? April is the 25th.
So you would want them a week before that, all comments, so you can put them together.
So the 17th.
17th?
That's okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I was trying to do, is establish a date by which, so that, the night before, we don't have something showing up at the last second. Okay.
Are we going to have a shorter party afterwards? Big deal.
Yeah, I know that it's not necessary and not required to change the charter. We are, as a board, empowered to do that and do not have to seek any sort of referendum. But are we satisfied that being on the website and reading newspaper articles from meetings and things like that is sufficient notice to Ocean Pines property owners that the charter is being reviewed by the board?
This is February, we're not meeting till April, so it's...
How do we get I'm just asking.
No, I understand.
What sort of,
I understand.
have we thought about any sort of proactive steps to alert the people who don't really pay a lot of attention to these things, the fact that something serious is going on with respect to the base document?
What is the committee's approach to notify folks?
Well, what the committee has done is follow the existing charter, which basically says the notice of the meeting has to be delivered to the residents of each member of the association. We said, oh, no, we don't want to do that.
Quarterly report?
And besides, what could we, so we can put the notice in the quarter, it's in this quarterly report.
So you're satisfied that that is adequate
That
notice?
meets the requirements. Now, certainly, Teresa and Jim can work so that perhaps on the webpage a notification can come that, hey, take a look at this. I should say, but it's kind of boring.
Well, no,
May I?
I understand.
But people, we haven't.
Don't you think the overwhelming response answers that question?
Okay.
All right, so we've got the dates.
Rob just said, made a comment. What about the people who are not here? All those people who don't live here?
They get the newsletter.
But
It's not,
I'm comfortable if the committee has said that they have lived up to the rules by doing this. They've assessed it and reviewed it, and,
Okay, one more question, please.
That's it.
And that's that when the board approves a revised charter for the corporation, what are the steps that are taken past that point? In other words, I'm a property owner in Ocean Pines. You just revised a basic tenant or a basic piece or a foundational piece of my contract with Ocean Pines. How are you going to tell me about that?
We're not. We're going to send it to the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. I say we're not. We're not required to.
That's what I was looking for, Joe, was whether we're required to or not.
Yeah. Once it is passed in accordance with the requirements of the law, we send it to State Department of Assessments and Taxation, and it then is recorded with them.
And put on in the depository at otherwise it's not enforceable, am I correct?
Absolutely, Marty.
okay.
As
We've got that.
you and I have
Jim, anything else?
discussed, yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah, just to not clarify, but add to the comments, on the website, you go to the homepage, and this is for whomever, including in particular members who may listen or see or read in the paper. If you go to the home page of the website, in the lower right-hand corner, there'll be a link that says Articles of Incorporation Draft. You click on that, and you'll see some explanatory information which has to be updated. And you will see 5 documents. The 1982 restatement, a 1984 amendment, 1997 amendment. Those 3 are the current charter. Then you'll see the draft before the board, which is the one received from Mr. Moore. And you will see a comparison of the draft with the current charter. Those 5 documents are a link that you'll be able to pick up and look at as you, if you're a member or a board member, whichever. One final comment. Can I assume that the board members do not need me to send to them the current charter?
Just
But, well, there may be a caveat there. Did you say there were 2 amendments to the 82?
Yes, 1984, 1997.
I don't have either of those. What would they deal with, just briefly?
The 1984 one deals with proxies, and the 1997 one deals with eligibility to vote.
Mr. President, we have not demonstrated any desire about reducing killed trees on this board. So I suggest that we have the general manager generate a package that has all this material in it, put it in our mailboxes. Right. This early convenience.
Okay, well, I'm still going to send you all.
No, that's fine.
The information.
We use lots of white paper around. Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for all your work, too.
Thanks.
This is tough, laborious work that needs to be done. Okay, new business. I will read, and all the board members got a copy of this letter from Al Pop Wendling. I will simply read it for the record. It was actually directed to Bob Thompson, City Manager, and Board of Electors. RE Home Occupancy Permit. He writes, to make a long story short, I am requesting my $30 refund for being misled concerning my business or of retail fun shirts and novelties. I was told I could not use a quote sign on the porch or window. I never told could not use signs on Parkway. Instead, concentrated on regulations. I filed using the porch for a business, 25% of occupancy, no employee, only immediate family, no bed and breakfast, children and daycare, and finally have 2 parking spaces for clients. This procedure took a month to schedule, which I could have looked for another location, as I have done business card included. Please in the future bring to people applying for a permit the truth. Mr. Thompson and Board of Electors, remember one person can make a difference. Also, after all said and done, may the hinges of friendship never get rusty. Basically, he wants his $30 back because he was rejected for an in-home business by the community. Yeah.
I know Al.
This first came to you, I realize.
But, all of this is after the fact. Al went without going and asking what he should do in order to do the business, put out the signs and did all these things. And then CPI said, hey, you can't do this and that. So it's all after the fact. He never applied prior to doing any of this because for one reason or another, maybe he didn't realize he had to, whatever else it is. But I don't think we should set the precedent of returning the money as much as we like Al.
Well, it's precedent there, but my question is there one in, and this is coming from a guy who's made a living believing the customers are always right. Is there 1 in 5 the guy, we all know, I mean, could he have been misunderstood what was going on? I mean, if we think that he's just gouged us, get on to the next. I don't think he is. I think the guy really thought that he was.
I need a motion to either pay him back or reject this.
Motion to pay him back.
Second.
You want to pay him back?
Pay him back.
You want to pay him back, or you don't want to
You
pay him
said you wanted to.
He gave you a motion, pay him back, I second the motion.
back? All right, that sort of means that's what you want to happen. I thought you didn't want that. Okay, well, we can vote on it.
Raise of hands will tell.
Okay, all right. All right, we have a motion to refund the $30. Any other motion and a second? Any further discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment. We have a lot of permits that we issue, and the fees for those permits, as I understand it, are for the work that are involved in evaluating the permit and the recommendation to the CPI whether to issue or not issue, as well as the CPI's work to evaluate it. That work was done in this case. So he has paid for the work that we did. We're suggesting that we give him a gift back. That's kind of a precedent I don't want to set.
I don't either, frankly. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to refund the $30? All those opposed?
I stuck my hand into that. Give him one vote. I wanted to say yes once before I got out of here.
That's an improvement.
Come on, Marty, I thought for once you might be there. All right, next thing on the list is CPI. Mr. Thompson.
I want Mr. Clark to come back. You vote yes on all these, so.
That's right.
He'll vote from back there.
I can hear you.
All right, the CPI violations, these are actually, for the most part, continuation from last month. They were distributed. Notice, we'll start with the first one, 31 Sundown.
I have a motion.
They owe us $8,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little slow. My motion is that we get a broker opinion of the value of that property and sue for foreclosure if it makes business sense. Putting the vinyl lattice back on that house, billing the guy that owes us $8,000 is just absolutely a waste of time.
That vinyl plan right there.
I mean, if you want me to go put the vinyl up, I will. But for God's sakes, the guy owes us $8,000 and we're worried about one piece of vinyl laying over.
So what is your motion?
My motion is suing for find out what he owes on his property, get a broker opinion as to the value of that property. It should be, it's a waterfront property. I'll bet you it's got equity.
Why don't you just use full value assessment, which instead of paying someone to do an appraisal?
You shouldn't have to pay someone.
Well, I mean, if you can get it done free.
A
that's
local
fine.
broker would normally do that for maybe the shot at future business. I'm talking about a broker opinion letter, not an appraisal.
Okay.
I mean, there's a difference between paying Jester $5,000 and getting a local broker to say, I'd sell it for $350.
Right, and Marty's point is step one. Step two, which we always do, is find out what the liens are against it so we can find out the equity.
And with $8,000, we should have already looked at it. But fixing the lattice, my God, that's rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic.
Well, I wanted to make sure that you did not intend to send the fixing the lattice question to OPA council.
Actually, I was going to ask if you brought your nail gun with you.
Chris Woodley may like that, but I thought, man, I don't want to charge you all for doing that.
No.
Just send somebody in there to fix it if you want to. But it's really two parts, I think. What Marty's saying is sue them for the assessment. And don't worry about the lattice. The issue is, do you do both? Do you do either? Or what do you do?
Thank you.
Well, you've got two different issues here. One of which is you've got neighbors of this person who has a lattice falling down. The question is, do we repair that just for the sake of helping the other members that are around them? But at the same time, in essence, do exactly what this page says. Recommendation is send to OPA attorney for appropriate for action and get somebody to put the lattice up. Do both. That's what this says. But Marty, your motion is different than this. You're saying don't fix the lattice. And my comment, because you didn't hear it, was there are people that live around this person. What is the harm
in getting your nail gun and putting the lattice back up.
If you want, I'll stop by and do it on the way home. I mean, as long as we have permission to enter upon the property, which requires a majority vote of this board.
That's fine. And we're gonna vote on this and.
Let me rephrase my, let me rephrase my motion. My motion is, have Public Works, CPI, whoever's got some baling wire, go put the piece of lattice back up. Then, immediately, that's the word I don't want to be confused, immediately find out how much this guy owes.
Immediately.
Right now. Find out what this guy owes, if there's any equity shot at all, foreclose on it.
Now,
Land records are not open today, Marty. Is Monday okay?
I think the definition of immediately would give you until Monday at probably 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
We should already have a title search on an $8,000 property. We don't.
And we may.
Well, but, and look, just so everybody knows, the $8,000 is not the issue. The issue is whether or not there's a first mortgage ahead of us for $400,000.
Exactly.
Right, exactly.
All right. So, in English language, the motion is fix the fence and sew
and since
Amen.
Marty has now changed the way he fixed that fence 3 times, I wouldn't send it.
it. I wouldn't either.
All
right.
I
have a second.
I'll second that.
We have a second on Mr. Marty's motion. All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Yeah.
Opposed? None. Moving on.
Oh,
Bob.
was Marty going or am I sending?
No, it's not
You're
what If you want me to go,
Oh, this is my favorite one. I really like this one.
Breezeway Lane?
Oh, yeah, this is my favorite.
you know what's unusual about this particular property? These pictures, of course, you hadn't trespassed to take. This, you cannot see one thing wrong with this house from the street.
So what's the problem?
Now, if you live next door to them and you go in your backyard and look right or left, you can see it. If you live behind them, you got bigger problems than this trash. It's knee-deep water. So, again, they owe back 2 years back assessments. You know, I hate to see us, again, fumbling over the marbles when we get hit by basketballs.
Yeah, but if you live next door, it wouldn't be one.
If I lived next door, I would have knocked on his door and seen how I could help him clean it up. But I don't.
Do I have a motion to send this to legal?
Heck, no. Why are we gonna send it to legal? It's already at legal.
Have a motion to Bob.
How about we go on the property, as we're allowed to, pick up the trash and haul it to the dump
And Billy.
and bill him. And he can add that to his $2,000. But that's a small claims court, will make money.
Can you do that, Bobby? All right, fine.
Majority vote.
Yep.
Tell me to do it, we'll do it.
There's my motion.
That's his motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Okay, so your motion is for us to trespass on the property?
Not trespass. It's not trespass under number
Making
7.
sure I understand. Because that's
We
what
are allowed with majority vote, king majority vote, whatever you call it.
And may I hate to go back, but just for, we're covered in 2 things. Should we not find these 2 people in continuing violation?
Absolutely, thank you very much. Skip the step.
Yeah. So I'll take it care. I make a motion that both of these properties be found in continuing violation of our bylaws.
Seconded.
How about this entire package?
Exactly.
Well, because there may be one in here we don't
All
want
right.
to.
Well, if I have a second, you have a second on that. All those in favor of Dave's motion? Opposed? None? Okay, they're in continuous violation. Now, number 2, what are we going to do here? The motion on the table
I
is
move.
to clean it up.
Clean it up. Send him a bill.
All right. Do I have a second on that?
Yes, you do.
Ray seconded.
Oh, and find them. Oh, we already found them.
Very good. Any discussion? Are we anywhere close to being clear as to what you're actually going to be doing?
Just authorize us to access the property, clean it up, we'll take
That's
care
it.
of it.
I mean, the property
All those
is
in
very
favor?
nice.
Aye. Opposed? None. Yeah, moving on.
The board of directors and the association have the right, through its agents and employees.
Believe me, I got it. I got it. I'm already aware of it. Been there at least more than a week. Okay, go ahead. Bob, next.
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Next was the RV. No permit, RV park on the
Skip on
property.
Skipping one.
Oh, that's the order.
The
of
mold.
mine.
Mold.
Put it Palazzo.
Now, here's another house that owes us $5,700, 4 years in the rear, okay? And this is one, when you were talking at the meeting yesterday, the meeting of the delinquent accounts,
Yeah.
and here's one that doesn't live at the residence, but does live right down the road. Okay, so that should,
All right, the proposed action here is to take legal action and hire somebody to clean the house.
oh no, I don't, do we want,
Is it power wash?
can you make the
Mold
motion?
off?
I'm just reading from the recommendation from management.
Is this a rental property? Do we know that?
I think
Well, they
that's
don't
the
live there.
implication. That's the implication.
And the house
Is-
is
is-
empty when I went by, yes.
It's empty, so it's vacant. It's abandoned at this point, as far as we know.
And they already have
One
a violation
Correct.
at the attorney's office for an
Correct.
exposed propane.
Well, the question I asked, if it's a rental property, if there's a rental manager, it could be certainly contacted one or two about that. Okay, just ask.
Did you want to make the motion?
No, you go right ahead, by all means.
I move we hire, we find the house, the owner in continuing violation, hire a contractor to power wash the house. Send him the bill.
I'll second it. And then, what about the attorney?
Do we know how much that's gonna cost?
He's
I mean,
already
power
advertised
washing
for
fee,
2 items.
Well,
Well,
but you
pile
gotta
on.
add this into it,
What would the cost be?
otherwise it isn't
That
it.
we don't know.
It depends. I mean, like, we may get Public Works do it from a contracting standpoint.
Yeah, ain't really that
We've got power.
much worse on that street.
Yeah.
Okay. Clear on what it is we're doing.
As long as they get super majority, we'll enter the property. and we'll-
All right.
Call the question.
All those in favor? Aye, opposed? You got it.
You've been super.
Super majority, I remember that.
This is the one I had.
2 to go.
Still there.
I'm sorry, this one's the RV.
Yeah.
Order.
I did.
That one's been there a long time.
Sent the letter, followed up, and forth. So this was started in November.
November, December last year. Hey, it is a pay.
Yeah, hey,
By the way, they're the only ones of the 5.
we should give this guy a break.
Send him another notice.
I tell you, we gotta
So
send
we've
you
sent
flowers.
notice, what we'd like to do is have the attorney send notice.
Okay.
You have a motion to do that.
Motion to have the attorney send the letter.
Second. Have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye, opposed? None. Last.
Number 5. Couple of things about this one. Well, we can start off, he owes $5,200. The second thing is, when I was there yesterday, there's no box trailers, they're gone. As of yesterday at, whatever time I was there, 3:45 yesterday, the trailers are gone.
Somebody sneaked the word that you were coming.
I don't know. The house, though, appeared to me that people were moving out. That's what it appeared. I mean, I can't testify to that, but let me put it this way. There was TVs and furniture on the front porch. Maybe that's where the fuck fans are. They're moving their
There's
stuff.
already a lien on it. Yeah. That was issued in the letter.
Yeah, well, you know what a lien gets you, don't you? Not the,
Down on the bottom of the list.
and I'm pretty sure unless this house is debt-free, there's no equity.
Well, the real challenge here is that the trailers have now been miraculously moved.
For those guys, they could be back today.
Can probably be back today, so.
And the guy owes us 52,
Yeah.
33, foreclosed.
Here's the real question. Do you expend legal fees to go after a movable trailer that apparently got moved for a day or forever, who knows which? No.
I am the wrong one to ask.
Oh, I know.
If it's gone, how can we proceed any further? It's already
Well,
gone.
I'm reminded, and I forget who it was and where it was and all that. We had a continuing problem with a commercial truck, and the same thing would happen. He'd get a letter, and the truck would disappear for a week and then come back and all
Oh,
that.
I know who you're talking about.
So we finally had the court order that the truck not come back, or we were allowed to tow it. Maybe we did. I don't know. But the notion is that if this is what's going to start happening, then we can resolve it. But at this point in time, I mean, we'll do what you want us to. But at this point in time, the letter, I noticed the letter went to a violation. Well, I'm sorry, I thought a letter went out on the 13th, but that's a follow-up to the board of directors. But it appeared to me that what they responded to was that latest notice, but I see that was in December.
Right.
You know, if it comes back, just have them report to us, and we'll do the same thing. What you do is you get a permanent injunction, so that it's a violation for them to bring it back, not just, you know, when they remove it. So.
Get Les Purcell to check it out. He lives next door.
That's right.
All right, do I have a motion to send this for legal?
Yes.
No, wait a minute, it's not consent.
I'm going to make a motion. I guess we can't even find him. Yes, we can find him a continued violation. He ain't paying his dues. Let's do something.
Well, he's in contempt.
I move we find
That's
him.
it's a different thing, not paying your dues. But he'd be in continuing violation for this.
Yes, but if we want Joe, if it comes back and we want Joe to take that action, we have to vote to send it to the
Okay, can I interject?
Yes.
Please.
Would it be acceptable since, as of the 13th, they were still there, but Marty's saying they were gone when he looked yesterday. With the board's permission, if we see, we'll have our inspector go out. If we catch it with another violation, with the board's permission, we will then send it to the attorney to say.
Bingo. I second that.
He can't make a
I
motion.
know he can't. Somebody
Actually, she's also incorporated.
Okay.
So moved.
Whoa, who made that?
I did.
Dan did.
I'll second it.
Marty seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Back up one. Continuous violation to the gentleman who has the trailer. We didn't do that part.
Thank you. I second that.
Sorry, what did you say?
We didn't do the continuous violation on the one trailer. 93 Ocean Parkway. All those in favor of making this one a continuous violation as well?
Yeah.
In favor,
I do have to point out that has no real effect unless he miraculously pays all his dues.
Yeah.
And he still
This
could-
one's already
I
paid.
got it. Then he could, it was already, yeah, all right, that's good. So he could, it's a real continuing violation.
He's right there. Okay, next thing on the agenda is appointments to advisory committees. I have Ron Fisher to the Communications and Technology Committee, signed off on by the liaison.
Whoa, watch the committee.
Communications.
That's what I said, Communications and Technology.
It's a reappointment.
It's a reappointment. Is there an issue here?
No.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None.
Same with Joseph.
Joseph Maturo to the same committee, reappointment. Any objections? No. Okay. And last, Carol Andrews to the Marine Activities Committee.
Wait a second now. Now, this is the gentleman who wants to rename the yacht club the Rusty Anchor. You sure you want that guy at the committee? As the liaison of the committee, I strongly urge you to appoint Carol to that committee.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? You're stuck. You're in.
You're it.
You don't get to vote.
You were a member of the Annapolis Yacht Club.
Media questions.
Maryland, not the Annapolis Yacht Club, Maryland Annapolis Yacht Club.
Eastport.
Do that this time.
Eastport,
I'm Eastport.
Motion to adjourn. Ray, you
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.